2022, regular session, 6:30 PM at 25 Oak Drive, Lake Jackson, Texas. Councilman John Baker is not here today. He is in all-week training, and it was just, he felt it was unsafe for him to travel to get here and then try to travel back to get back to Galveston this evening. So that's why he's not here tonight. We're going to start off with a pledge of allegiance led by Councilman Broadus. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, if you join me with the invocation. Heavenly Father, we come to you with grateful hearts. Thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on each of us. Father, we thank you for our first responders, our servicemen and women, and our employees. We ask that you keep them safe. Father, please give the council the wisdom, guidance, and courage to make the decisions that are best for our community. In your name, we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen.
All right. First thing we have on the agenda is visitors' comments, and this is an opportunity for visitors to approach council to talk about something that is not on the consent or regular agenda. And again, we can't take any action other than possibly putting it on a future agenda. So we have, so we have one person that signed up, is that right? Megan? Yes. You had to come to the podium. And go ahead and state your name and address so we can follow up with you if we need to.
Okay, my name is Megan Arsenault, and I'm actually not a homeowner in Lake Jackson. I was at one point. I do own a business here in Lake Jackson, but my address is 1005 Cardinal Court, Richwood, Texas.
Okay.
So I am here today because this past week there was a home that was demolished. That was demolished by the city of Lake Jackson. It's 503 Gardenia. I'm here on Ms. Hartman's behalf. So I was the one who showed up after the video was placed and online, and I was just trying to get some clarity on the situation. And it looks to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I went through the whole timeline of everything that the city of Lake Jackson said that they did to exhaust all resources. Nowhere on that timeline was she advised to go talk to a real estate professional who could have, at that point, I believe, helped her make the right moves to, I guess, to make sure that everything was happening as it should be. She is a 68-year-old woman who is in very poor health, and she lives off of Social Security, which is about $13.26 a month. So in that timeline, there were times where she had made attempts to clean up her yard or do things to try to, I guess, just do things to try to get her property up to par. But, you know, in this economy, $1,300 a month is not very much. And so it was just concerning to me that there wasn't really anything done. I feel like talking to a real estate professional, as there's very many in our area that I'm sure would have been very grateful to help her. But it was also brought to my attention that there were inspections done on the property to deem it, I guess, demolishable. I saw a little bit inside the home, and I see tons of houses all the time that are in much poor condition than that one was in, and those, I don't ever see those being demolished. So I just feel like she was not done justice, and I just wanted it to bring to attention. I was reading through y'all's agenda, and I saw that the city of Lake Jackson had procured a buyer still at that point, and she agreed to sell it, but I guess there were delays in how fast she was moving, or maybe she just wasn't sure of what was going on. But the fact that the city of Lake Jackson brought her a buyer and still did not advise her to go to a real estate professional to seek advice, that just doesn't sound very ethical to me. So I just want to know how come that was never determined? How come the city of Lake Jackson did not send her to one of these real estate agents to give her actual advice, someone that she trusted? She had told me multiple times that she was put in a room with several people and was just kind of given the runaround. I mean, she's 68 years old. She doesn't really have a good understanding as to what's going on. She was having a hard time telling me how she even got to this point. And then I tried to do my act of service and what I feel is right, and I started a GoFundMe for her. And apparently that was put out that I was trying to start a GoFundMe to save the home, which was not the case. I was just trying to help her get past this horrible situation. And I also was told that the demo was going to cost about $20,000, and that was going to be at her expense as well, even though she never asked for it to happen. She made attempts to get her property in order. And unfortunately, she has a neighbor that was not happy with the way that she was, or as fast as she was moving on the property. But again, $1,300 a month to live off of, to pay your bills, to eat, to put gas in your car, and to fix up a home that, I mean, I flipped several properties in Lake Jackson, and it's not very easy getting permits and trying to work with the city to get these things done. So I just wanted to bring it to attention because I don't feel like Lake Jackson exhausted all resources. So yeah.
We are going to talk about the process on item 10. And so you'll be able to ask some of those questions also, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of those questions to explain what the process we went through and what efforts we went through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's the last person that signed up for visitors' comments. And so we'll move on to presentations. So we have a proclamation. And this is a proclamation. I, Gerald Rosnowski, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Lake Jackson, Texas, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd of 2022 as Constitution Week in the city of Lake Jackson. Whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation. Whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitutional Week. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebration of which will commemorate the occasion, now therefore the mayor and the city of Lake Jackson, Texas, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd of 2022 it's Constitution Week in the city of Lake Jackson, and testimony whereof witness my hand and the seal of the city of Lake Jackson this 19th day of September 22. All right. And I take we don't have anybody to receive this. I didn't see anybody in the audience.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda is declaration of conflict of interest. This is where an opportunity where any member of city council can make a declaration that they have a conflict of any item on the consent agenda or the regular agenda. Is there a conflict to declare? Not hearing any, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All right. Item 1, approve minutes from September 6, 2022. Item 2, accept board and commission minutes, Planning Commission, Traffic Commission, and DSDB. Item 3 is cast vote for Jose Sanchez, Personnel Director, to the TML Health Benefits Pool Board of Trustees for Region 14. Item 4, resolution number 904, allowing the Turkey Trot to use one lane of the neighborhood streets that they close to LJI on Thanksgiving for future years. Resolution 902, amending the budget for funding the 2023 County Road Project for North and South Southern Oaks Drive, in the amounts not to exceed $230,000. Item 6, authorize the city manager to execute a contract with New Gen Strategies for utility rate study through HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Contract HP 09-21 in the amount not to exceed $38,000. Item 7, ratify contract with Central Square Technologies LLC for Lake Jackson Police Department new software first phase in the amount not to exceed $600,000. Item 8, approve amendment number 8 to GLO new gas contract number 09-235-000-3779 to extend contract an additional 2 years. Do I have a request from anybody on city council to remove any item? Not hearing any, I'll take a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 1 through 8 as presented.
All right, have a motion,
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Regular agenda, just a note here, on the regular agenda, item 12 has been deferred to our next meeting by request of city staff. We're going to move on to item 1. We're going to have to open a public hearing. Opening a public hearing for rezoning of 3-acre portion out of Lot 2, Block 1, Section 13 of Plantation Village, currently addressed as 220 Lake Road, from B3 institutional to B1A professional office. Meeting started at 6:42.
Mayor, this is a rezoning request from the church. They own property next to them, and they want to sell this and have this rezoned for professional offices. As requested in the ordinance, we've posted the sign there for several weeks. I don't know if have received any calls. One call, was it just asking? So we've not heard from, any residents or anything that are opposed to it. But is someone from the representative of the church here? I think they could probably better speak to what they want to do.
Okay, great. Name and address.
Yes, sir. Hello, my name is Chris Reese. I'm the executive lead pastor of the church, and 220 Lake Road is our address there. So we purchased the property altogether. It's a 14-acre lot, about like 21 and a half years ago. Built the building we have on the 7 acres that we currently reside on. The other 7 kind of for future use. And as we've reevaluated over the last couple of years, we don't really have any plans to expand our building, not down that way anyway. If we do, we'd go back towards our parking lot on the opposite side of the building. And of course, the property has increased in value just a little bit since we bought it 21 years ago. What this allows us to do as a church, these 3 acres basically will pay off all our remaining debt on our current property, setting us up for debt-free into the future. That helps a tremendous amount coming out of COVID and all the things that has done for us as it's done for all the other businesses. So we procured a buyer, pending, of course, the rezoning all being approved. And he is the owner of the office complex that is the border of that property on the other side. What is the name of that, Ryan? You know, it's right there on the other side of the ditch.
Milford, can you pull up the map a couple pages down? It'll show a location for the audience.
This is past the ditch.
Yeah, so the ditch is where our property ends, and then that other property there, there's that office complex. So that same owner, Mark Monaco, is looking to purchase these 3 acres, and I believe to expand his business. That's the B1A.
Okay. Any questions, council?
I thought I heard you say 14 acres?
Is our original purchase, so we own 14, we're selling 3.
Okay.
We'll keep the remaining 4 that's currently not developed, and that'll be for future expansion.
Okay, so just a rezoning of 3, and then I'm to understand that's like a physical delineation of some kind, that the 3 is gonna stop at is that ditch? Is that what I
Yeah,
heard?
well, so the ditch, the ditch where that other B1A
Yep.
is that side of the property. On the other side, basically it borders up next to our parking lot.
Okay.
And it'll be 3 acres carved out. The survey stakes went up yesterday, or today. So anyway, that frontage basically is what we're selling. We're maintaining the portion that backs up to Home Depot's on the other side of that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor and the council, I'm the liaison to the planners, and they had a discussion and a public hearing as well, and everything was well received, and they approved the rezoning.
Recommendation? Yeah, the recommendation, okay. All right, any other comments from the audience on that? Just by chance? All right, anything else? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, closed at 6:45. And we'll move on to item 2. Dusty, you want to read the?
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Lake Jackson, Texas, finding that all prerequisites of the law have been complied with necessary to amend the zoning map of the city and amending the zoning map of the city of Lake Jackson, Texas by rezoning a 3-acre portion out of Lot 2, Block 1, Section 13 of Plantation Village, currently addressed as 220 Lake Road, the Family Life Church site, from B3 institutional to B1A professional offices, providing for penalties, providing a savings clause, and providing for publication.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the rezoning of a 3-acre portion out of Lot 2, Block 1, Section 13 of Plantation Village, currently addressed as 220 Lake Road, the Family Life Church site, from B3 institutional to B1A professional offices as requested.
All right, we have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion with council? All right, not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, rezoning is approved. Yep, go ahead.
Mayor, at the next meeting, they'll have a second.
Second reading. That's
Second
right.
reading.
This is first
So,
reading.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Close.
Close. All right, so we'll move on to item 3 is discuss Northwood pedestrian crossing at Farm to Market 2004 and that way. And I'm bringing this to council because I had a request from a couple of residents in Northwood asking about why we don't have a school crossing, an approved school crossing at that intersection. And also, there's also some request about that the sidewalk from that crosswalk connecting to the sidewalk on the BISD's property for Best Brandon was not put in during construction. So that was also a request in this area. So, Dusty, you want to start with some history?
Yeah, this has been discussed, I believe, at least one time, maybe. I
think it's twice.
I think it has been twice. I think the last one was, I believe, February 2020, where we had some residents come up and request crossing guards. And the ultimate, recommendation was not to have this as a school crossing. And the chief could speak, elaborate on it as well. My, personal feelings is that even with the drop down of speed of 35 miles an hour, it just makes it unsafe. It's not a normal 20 miles an hour at a regular crossing. We've talked about, again, putting 2 crossing guards here, 2 crossing guards here, but it's the speed that still worries me and the inattention of drivers going at the intersection. The sidewalk crossing probably, the school stopped where their property stops. So they can't put, sidewalk into the right of way. We do have a meeting with TxDOT tomorrow asking, for permission, if we put the sidewalk and see if we can, maybe speed that along. It would be a simple, connection. And I agree, it would be, a good thing. Because I think right now what's happening is, as maybe adults or with their children are crossing over, they wind up walking on a kind of an asphalt shoulder, and it's kind of painted. And I think it's a good idea to put a sidewalk on there. But again, we have to ask for permission from TxDOT to do that.
Well, Paul, you want to go ahead and give us your observation or opinion on this too?
Yeah, just as a reference, years ago, we had a crossing across a major multi-lane highway out at 332 as well. That was deemed to be so unsafe that we closed that off and started helping out by buzzing students from that side of the highway to the other that were going to LJI and some of the elementary schools over there. And that's the problem. I can certainly sympathize with, you're right there, and now I've got to load the kids up and take them and wait in line. But it just is such a danger, because although the speed goes from 50 to 35 up where you see that second entrance at the top, there's actually 2 signs. 35, when you have multiple lanes, you have a left turn lane, you have a right turn lane, then you have two through lanes and cars next to each other. If someone was to disregard the light just out of inattention or what have you, it's critical. It's not just, it's even worse than in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. There's just not enough reaction time, really. It just seems to be a very unsafe option. Even the crossing like it is kind of an invitation to take a little more risk than I think is necessary or recommendable there.
Okay. And I went ahead and I talked to BISD and to get some information from them, because again, like the chief was saying, is that whenever the 332 and 288 expansion came through, Joe Reinhardt was the mayor at the time, and we had the concern about people, kids crossing to get to LGI and so forth, and over to Rasco and stuff. So we actually, at that time, the state didn't allow reimbursement for busing within the 2-mile radius. So we worked out an arrangement with BISD to cover that cost. I think it was $7,000 a year to do that busing. And then since then, the state legislature allows the school district to designate a neighborhood or an area as a special purpose or whatever, they have a term for it. And that if they do that, then they can get that reimbursement. So I asked if there's something that could be done for Northwood, if the residents were interested in it. And it's something they would have to work with Northwood, but that we would support if they wanted to go to BISD about it. There's 33 students that go to Best Brandon that live in that neighborhood. I got that from the assistant superintendent on Friday. And so it's something that they could do. They would probably, depending on the number of people that were interested in doing that they would probably use one of the smaller vehicles that don't require CDL drivers, so it would be easier, because their biggest concern is just finding drivers. They don't have enough drivers for the buses they have. And so, but if they could go with the smaller vehicle, well, then they could possibly be able to hire somebody that, again, it doesn't require CDL. Yeah, and so they'd pick them up, and again, their hope would be is that the students it could be like a one pickup or something like that, if possible. If that's, again, if the parents, the community, the neighborhood wants something like that. I did reach out to the HOA president and asked him if I could send a letter to the residents, making them aware that this question came back up again and getting interest, see how many people were interested. And I did receive 2 letters, emails back, and one was from Ms. Cook. Is Ms. Cook here, or any of the people from? Okay, yes. Were you Ms. Cook? Oh, Ms. Okay. So you can talk. You can step in just a second. So, so I did receive 2 emails, and so that's why I went forward with bringing this to council. So you want to go ahead and speak? Yes, and give your address, name and address, please.
I am Danielle Nelson. I'm at 51 Sago Court, literally just that house on the corner there.
Okay.
So I'm prior military, so I completely understand laws and regulations and things like that. So I completely understand the logistics behind not being able to get the cross guards. So I was hoping just to maybe throw out an opinion and make you have it into consideration that perhaps we could have the school lines a little bit longer, or possibly push back the stop or the yield line at the west, heading west on the
Ms. Nelson, do you
2004.
have a
The
pointer there?
Oh,
Can you point that out to us?
okay, so here, because this lane right here turns into the neighborhood.
Right.
And so the crosswalk is right here, and coincidentally, so is the yielding line. It's relatively close, too close for comfort.
Right.
There's also the turning lane right here as well. And I have expressed this, it is, the signaling is a little,
Yeah, I think you suggested maybe adding a few more seconds to the crossing.
a few more
too.
seconds
Yeah.
to it, or
Yeah.
possibly pushing the line back just maybe like 3 feet.
This is,
Mostly because, and this is a concern, and again, I'm not trying to spend a bunch of money or use resources that aren't necessary. In order for the cars to be able to see the kids crossing, because it's only 10 seconds, and my kids are just bolting, which is why I stopped them from their scooters, because here, you genuinely, when the cars are lined up, you can't see it. It's kind of, from that point right there, it is diagonal. So those cars turning into Ridgewood, they will never see
Right.
the kids crossing, or a parent for that matter. So it's just a matter of a simplistic possible help for the kids, either extending the cross a few seconds, and then the other concern was, of course, this area right here, only because a lot of cars like to kind of just go around into the dirt and turn. Well, my kids are standing there as well, so if there was maybe a curb to stop that from happening, because again, when this light turns green, this one's red. And by the time we get here, either my kids are trying to rush to get to this green light, or we have to wait again for this one. And it's mostly because of this turning lane here, and I totally get it, just because of how everything's going. So for me, if we had a little bit more visibility here, whether it's crossing the crosswalk lanes that you put like just those lines parallel to each other, or the yield stop line pushed back just a pinch, so at least that the turning lane can see the kids coming and have the cars here and keep that lane there how it is, I think that would actually help significantly. So as of right now, the 10 seconds that we have between each light, by this point right here, we're
You're in-
running to get
you're
across
in the
the street.
intersection,
It's not enough time.
And I've
So-
noticed, sitting there, watch the traffic, they have one of the kids on the other side, far side, keeps on pressing the buttons. When the kids enter the highway intersection, they go all the way through without having to stop, because when you press the crosswalk light, it turns both lanes red.
Right.
So they've been doing that on their own just to
Right.
to
and the-
alleviate
and-
the situation.
And that's the issue with the actual turning lanes in the middle here, is that when this light right here is red, it's because it's allowing for this traffic
Right.
here to turn. A lot of instances, if we're picking up our kids late or early, there's really no cars turning. So we know as the residents to cross, but at the same time, we don't, because, again, people just fly through there. And I know you guys placed that, the shield for the lights, so that these cars here don't go on the green from over here, because you can see it, and it still happens to this day where they'll go and it's actually
Yeah, that's
red.
that's been an ongoing issue, and we've worked on it for years and years. We just can't find a solution with, even work with TxDOT. But the good thing about it is with the, suggestion you're bringing in, is that, again, Modesto is going to be meeting with them tomorrow, so
Right.
they can have those discussions about that.
Right, because I was gonna propose something else, but I mean, statistically, the stopping point is well over 120 feet, and that's ridiculous to ask for that stop to be put further out for the 35-mile-an-hour zone, and it's even more so with the 60-mile-an-hour, it's at 300 feet. So, I mean, like I said, the easier and simpler solution for what I would consider a temporary fix would be just to push it back a pinch and then just extend the time of the light for crossing, and that's it, because that's all it is.
Those are good suggestions.
Ms. Nelson, you mentioned the curb. Are you saying the curb right here?
Yes.
Putting a curb right there?
Correct,
To keep the
correct.
people from turning right
Because-
from jumping over.
So this right here is where the sidewalk ends, and then this here goes into this section here. It's like a
Okay.
little L, or maybe even a 7 if the way we're looking at it now.
Right.
And there is no curb there. There actually is no curb the whole extent of the way there, which is fine. But if we're trying to cross and wait, and if there's no cars coming, these cars are gonna go. But again, if our light's green and their light's green, what's to stop somebody from just cutting through while the other car's waiting? And it happens. And that's why we get the most traffic as well, is because these two lanes are singular lanes. It's a small town, I get it. We don't really consider the expansion as we're going through the years, and we'd like to keep things nice and simple. But, these cars go straight, and then they go around the other cars, and the same thing happens down here. So it's just, again, if we can just get them to see us, it's visibility is a key factor here. It's visibility. And if we can get that visibility, then, I'm speaking for myself, obviously, but I am more than okay. I mean, like I said before, I'm prior military, 15 years with the United States Air Force, meteorologist. My main goal in the military is safety, so asset, resource protection, personnel, you name it. So for this here, if I'm thinking about everybody as a whole collectively, it's going to be the visibility, whether it's to the car, the pedestrian, the children, what have you, traffic.
Well, and you understand, working for the Air Force, I'm getting ready to meet with the Air Force and ask them if I can build a sidewalk on their property. So we're going to try to expedite it and, use our city funds, but we need to ask them for permission and convince them it's the right thing. So we'll start that process tomorrow.
As long as it benefits everybody involved. I don't see why they would say no, but I mean, again, it's just a request. Doesn't mean it has to happen. It's just throwing it out there and letting
No, those are all good
the
suggestions.
seed grow.
One of the things that would suggest that during the school hours, there'd be no right turn on red, just during school hours. That would prevent people from cutting that curb, trying to make a right hand turn when the kids are trying to go forward.
That's going to create
No, just during school
considerable.
hours, yeah.
I know, but,
Congestion on that way.
but that's going to be congestion on that way because you got people that are coming out.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Agreed. That's why I said
I
the
think you're
curb,
creating,
because it would
yeah, a
prevent.
curb would be easiest. That's going to, I think, would create a considerable traffic challenge.
People don't usually stop on red to take a right turn. You know,
Correct.
people just,
And the same thing
Wait a
for
minute.
Northwood. That's why I said if we can just stop or push the lane back or extend the crosswalk, at least the turning lane could see us. Or maybe even tilt it a little bit diagonally towards the pedestrian versus just laterally how it is now.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, we could discuss, I mean, Modesto could discuss with them about Vinay's suggestion about no right on red at that time period. But again, that's a TxDOT call.
or maybe just yield to pedestrians on the sidewalk, or something like that, that we have other places in Lake Jackson.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that intersection.
And as far as the light, 3 to 5 seconds would make a huge difference as well, for the crossing purposes.
So you'd want to, so basically, you want to hold traffic up another 3 to 5 seconds. So you
Right,
have.
just to get across.
Just get, I
correct.
understand, I'm just trying, it doesn't do good for us to put extra time on the little ticker
Right.
for you to cross. It's, we got to resequence that whole light, but.
Okay, and we'll put this on the next agenda for an update. I don't know if we will have an update, but we can continue.
Chase.
Okay, so is this intersection set up when they come from Best Brennan, they push the crosswalk button? Is it allowing, no, I'm good, thank you. Is it still allowing green lights? You know, normally you'll have a green light, Paul, right, that's gonna let your drivers turn right onto 2004. They're just supposed to yield to those pedestrians once they get in the.
Right.
Is that how this
Correct.
light is set up? Do we know?
Yes, and that's also listed at, in the Lake Jackson actually documents for transportation, they are to yield.
So if I understand right, can't TxDOT resequence it to where it's an all stop? All lights go red when the people get in the crosswalk? I know we do, I don't know if it's in our city, I'd have to go look, but I just went through an intersection that's like that for the kids. So if TxDOT could do that, let's do a complete stop for everybody. All red lights,
When
and
the-
allow them the time.
And
When
that sounds
the-
like the safest thing to do
Yeah.
on a
When the
road like
crosswalk
that.
button is
When the
pushed.
crosswalk button is pushed, everybody will go red. Everybody stops.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in the cities.
They can do it, we're gonna have to pressure them to do it.
And who's having the conversation with the ISD in terms of the potential maybe busing?
Well, I've just started the conversation with them. It's going to be, at the end of the day, it's going to be the residents need to petition or contact them. I mean, I can continue to talk for them, but it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to be
They need to
those two parties need to talk and find out how many people are going to participate and who's not. And
Would you guys use it, or do you know if any of the neighbors would use that if the bus was available?
I honestly believe that we would. I think it would just be a matter of where the pickup point would be, and somewhere within that, the initial Northwood Street would be perfectly.
Does it
fine.
absolutely have to be the neighborhood that petitions that to be ISD? I ask that because I get frustrated seeing that all these people came to city council 2 years ago and we pushed them to BISD and nothing happened. Like, can we step in and pressure BISD? We all pay lots of tax money to BISD. So
Right.
if we can put more pressure on them, I'll be more than happy to call.
And I was told something similar, which is why a lot of parents didn't show up
Well-
today, because they said, we tried, but nothing really came of it.
again,
Can we
there's-
do that?
There's, well, first of all, I don't think there's any need for pressure because they are open to it. And so, again, we can move forward with it. What we would need from the neighborhood is to have a contact point to understand how many people would be interested in it to get started. And we can,
I would be more than
We can have
happy to
them do-
be that liaison with the HOA director.
okay.
to solicit for any information or even bodies that would be interested.
Right.
Will you leave your phone number
But again,
before you leave?
at the end of the day is that, yeah, we'll have to, it'll be a call of the school board will have to decide if they want to provide, make that happen.
That sounds great by me. I just wanted to throw out some, just sprinkle some seeds and watch it grow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 4 is discuss and consider a license to allow Northwood HOA to install private flock security cameras in the right-of-way on Deerwood and Northwood Drive. Modesto.
Yes, we had, the chief had received a request from the Northwood Homeowners Association about putting flock security cameras up. We have several up in the city that are city-owned. These would be owned by the homeowners association, but we would have access, to that data as we're allowed to for, police investigations. But they do need to come to city council because their request is to put it in the city right-of-way. And that, of course, requires permission from the city council.
Okay, Paul? You have
Much
anything
to add, other than it's been a great program so far. I send you occasionally some successes we've had. Not all of them, we've had quite a few in locating stolen vehicles, almost on the daily. So this is pretty nice, and this is one of those partnerships we were looking forward to when we went down that road, and folks at Northwood are looking to take advantage of that.
And that was my only previous question. I think I'd spoken with Mike, was that you? Yeah, and just that you had, and you'd said that you'd sent out a letter to the residents. Did you get much feedback from that?
My name is Mike Heather. I live at 216 Canyon Oak Drive in Lake Jackson, and I am the current Northwood HOA president. We sent out an email blast and letter. We have some homeowners that we don't have their email, so we letter them to all 201 homeowners. And we also posted it on our Facebook page. And then we followed up with a Q&A with some of the input that we had gotten. So let's see, we had, Northwood's pretty, they're not real active a lot of times. So we got 8 email responses back, 7 likes and a couple of I love you type of things. And we got 134 Facebook people. So most of everything we've heard so far has been positive. Everybody was looking forward to it. We were actually asked about this from some neighbors, from some homeowners years ago, and didn't act on it because of the cost. But now that we've got 201 homes, we can spread it out a little bit easier. So we only had one individual that was concerned about privacy and cost, raising the dues. So I communicated with him. He never got back. Just an email. He never got back. So I assume he's okay. A couple of people had problems with tracking vehicles through the neighborhood, but we reminded him it just takes a picture of the license plate. We don't actually track vehicles as they go through. So I do have some maps here if you want to look at where we're going to place them.
Is that
Okay.
kind of depicted there?
Yeah. The ones that are crossed out, we were looking at 4 cameras to begin with, but when we met with the police chief, we decided 2 was enough. We just need to get people coming in. There's no other way out.
Right. Kind of trapped in there.
So will that change at all with the development of Northwood 4? There will still just be those same entrances?
Yeah, that's the only way in.
Okay.
The only thing for us, it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, more homes,
We'll have more homes to divide it among.
right.
And it will be, most of the people see it as a positive for their home value because they'll reside in a neighborhood that has flock safety.
Well, I appreciate you doing all that legwork to get all that information out to them.
Okay, any other questions on this, council? Okay, we need to take an action on this, so I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we allow the Northwood HOA to install private flock security cameras in the right-of-way on Deerwood and Northwood Drives I'd like to add a proviso, there will be no other signs allowed on this, on these poles, such as, for sale or, any commercial or any other types of signs. They'd be exclusively for,
It's still the right of way. They can't do anything else. If it's on there.
I just
they
want to
need
make sure that's clear
take it
that,
off.
this
Yeah.
will be just for these flock cameras,
Yes.
nothing else.
Okay, have a motion? I need a second.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. Any further discussion, council?
Just one last thing. Do we have it to where we know for sure that if Lake Jackson PD needs access to those cameras, that that's a done deal?
Yes,
Okay.
All right,
we want that.
all right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Move on to item 5. This is going to be discuss anyway traffic study update. Sabrina.
The city has received a request to do a speed study, that there was some issues over on Anyways, excessive speeding. There were a couple of accidents that has concerned the residents that were there. So this came to traffic went ahead, we did an in-house speed study. There was still some concern about what was going on, so we brought in Kimley Horn with the traffic engineer to validate my information and make sure that we're looking at the good stuff and see if there was any other suggestions that could be done. So Kimley Horn did a study. And then just for ourselves, we did another one with 3 different locations still along anyway, just to make sure that we're catching a good wide berth. So tonight I have requested Mr. Ryan Urick, who is the traffic engineer from Kimley Horn, to come down here and to go over the Anyway study with you guys.
Great.
And Mayor, Council, the data that you see is just our second collection that council had requested after the first one. So that's the follow-up data. And I believe the traffic engineers had a chance to look at that as well to see if there was any, updated changes.
Okay.
Mayor, members of council, I guess for the record, Ryan Urick. I'm a professional engineer at Kimley Horn. Work address is 11700 Katy Freeway, Houston, Texas. Appreciate you having me here tonight. As Sabrina mentioned, she had done an initial study. This was just to kind of have a third-party review of not only her data that the city had collected, but then also come back with various methods to true that up. I know that there was a concern anytime it comes down to speed with residents and even kids playing out in the yard. I know that's a very important thing. So I'm pleased that you were able to pull us in. Our study was actually done in April of this year. And what we found from that, we did 2 types of data collection, north and south of the curve on Anyway. We actually put down pneumatic tube counters. That's one method of collecting speed, but it has its shortcomings in that you can't really get the leading vehicles all the time. But we also did radar, where we'd actually get spot speeds, specifically at the location near Mistletoe, which was the primary location of concern. What we found from the tube counts is that the speeds were generally within that 30 to 35 mile per hour. And then with the radar, both northbound and southbound, we found that they were generally within the 30 mile per hour and 33 mile per hour. So we did find it commensurate with the speed limit that's out there, 30 miles per hour. And so what we advised, that there's the 3 E's of that you can really take an approach on: engineering, education, and enforcement. And so the engineering side of things, we found that there is a perceived issue, and when we look at that, we talk about the 85th percentile. We're talking about most drivers are obeying that speed limit. There might be some outliers, but that's going to be on any roadway. And so from the engineering side, there's a larger toolbox that you can look at, but what we found in this case, there wasn't any immediate call to action for this particular case. On the education part, that'll get into part of what we talk about with the recommendations, but just making sure folks that are driving on the road, residents as well as people who might be passing through, that they're aware that is the 30 mile per hour. It is in the ordinances, but one of the recommendations that came out of the story was put some static signs on either end of the neighborhood, just to remind them that there's a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit there. The last, of course, is the enforcement piece, and we all have resources on the PD side, on the fire department side, and even on the engineering side. So, it's good to always have that enforcement piece of being able to have somebody out there, but it does take manpower to watch that. But that's always something you can go back and revisit if there's still a concern of it ticketing if necessary. And I guess a few other notes, going through that curve, there's a 25-mile-per-hour advisory speed going through that curve. We do see people slow down through that curve. The city actually had put up an active feedback sign, and those can be effective. You can get, over time, you can kind of start to ignore it, but it's good to kind of place that out just to remind people, hey, you're going a little bit fast, so you need to slow it down. And so, yeah, again, the recommendations out of that study was to put some static speed limit signs on either end of the neighborhood on anyway. But I'd entertain any questions or feedback.
So Mistletoe was where the incident happened. The reason I asked for a second study was because once you get through those S curves, it's a straightaway down there till you get to 2004. So I wanted to make sure we were capturing down there. Did we have anything down that way?
We captured around Boyganville, which is, go ahead.
That was the second study that we did. I told you we put the 3.
Right.
And we still didn't receive any actionable items.
So if I'm looking right, because there's a ton of information here, page 96 in the packet. If I'm looking at this right, is speed statistics by the hour, right, from July through August. So that's midnight through, that's a whole day, right? That's 24 hours. And that's giving you minimums, maximums, medians, means. So the maximum, that's speed, correct?
Yes.
So the speed limit's 30 miles an hour. And I'm seeing just, let me throw some numbers, 47, 49, 54, 53, 58, 68, 55, 55, 46, 52. I'm just calling them out. I realize those are max, but all of those that are double the speed limit and it didn't trigger anything for you guys?
We look at the percentile, sir. The 85th percentile is what we're looking at. And that's what we mean by an actionable item.
But it takes
Like I
one
said,
person
like
to
when I
enhance
brought this up the first time, my only issue is we had a car go into a house and almost kill people. A sign is not gonna stop that, but that's my 2 cents.
So, Mr., it's a fair question. When you see the 85th percentile and the speed limit looks good, and I won't be polite here, there's always seems to be a knucklehead or two that don't follow the speed limit. What do you do? What do you recommend in those cases to try to stop them?
What we found in the past when we've had problems with excessive, like just blatantly excessive speeds, it's usually due to things, belligerence, usually intoxication at times, that just blatant disregard or street racing, if that happens to be the case. Again, this case, observations that we made out there did not see that. The data shows that as far as the maximums. But if you look even at the 95th percentile, I mean, this was the more recent study that the and so really it's observations that you have. You have a few bad actors in that case. There are tools in the toolbox as far as road diets and things of really curbing that speed, if you will, if there's a blatant issue. But it's the context of the road, and I agree that it's a strike segment, and that lends itself to the potential for going a little bit faster there. So we're going off the data, we're going off the observations, and that's the best we can go. If there's a specific apologize. I mean, just it really, if we go down, I appreciate what you're saying,
Yeah.
and there are tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you calculating this 85th percentile, are you including these 5 mile an hour garbage truck speeds as well in it?
And that's, yes.
So
the
that
tubes
data is
will.
very
No,
false
it's a
then.
fair question. The
Yes,
tubes
yeah.
will. And that's
So-
why we did actually the spot speeds with the radar gun to act, because you don't want to get the ones that are going super slow. You don't want to get cars that are following that are limited by a vehicle in front of them. That's the kind of things we curb out when we do the radar gun going through there.
That was all during the day?
During the AM and PM peak, yes, during the primary times there. The volume on this road is about 1,000 vehicles a day in both directions. So, the shortcut, just, you're gonna have a very few limited number of people that you can actually collect data on during the day. The advantage of the tubes is that you can actually get more data over
Right.
a week. But it has the limitation of catching slower vehicles or vehicles that are following and whatnot.
Desta, do we still have the Coast radars that we had purchased for other places in the city that we had to take down because people were afraid they were getting radiated? That's
So,
true. We had to take it down because,
I asked Sabrina that, and we've not.
We have them, they are very old. I do not believe that they are actually in good working condition.
Yeah.
We can look at that. The best thing that we have is what we've used before is the flashing radar, and it doesn't capture speed. It just simply flashes and tells you how fast you're going.
and one of the challenges that you have is with, when you have a feedback like that is that some people will want to test their accuracy of their speedometer.
They like to
Just put
race
that-
on foot when they see that too.
Yeah,
They want
yeah,
to see how
it's-
fast
but-
they're going.
Anyway, it's just, trying to see if there is some kind of tools that we can put out there that are reminders that are passive, but still reminders of, of what the speed limit is and that, yes, you are exceeding the speed limit.
When would the 85th percentile, usually what is the marker that you see is like, okay, we need to look at the toolbox further and see if there's other things to do?
If you're within 5 miles per hour, how speed limits are set, I mean, if it's within 5 miles per hour either way, you can set the speed with an
Right.
engineering judgment up or down from that. So if we were getting closer to the 8 to 10, all right, now we're seeing a higher percentage of people that are blatantly disregarding the sign. And so a lot of it comes down to context of the road. And so, really, if we had seen something, even on the data that was collected here, the 95th percentile, which is not necessarily the first marker we go to, but even that was showing that speeds were less than 35 throughout
Right.
the day consistently. So, we're going off the data. Again, there's tools that you can do that you can try to fix a perceived concern, but just that comes at dollars and that. There's always road diets and things you can do, and a lot of times it comes into fire department if that's going to affect emergency response and other things.
If it would have met your next threshold, what would have been your suggestion?
Quite frankly, you could look at road. We've done things in the past of a splitter. We'll call them splitter islands, where you actually have a median briefly in the middle. It could be anywhere from 3 to 6 feet, and really narrow that lane down to 10 feet on either side. We could have chicanes where you kind of bulb people out on either side and shift them back and forth laterally. The other,
And do those work, I mean, when we have narrow roads like 27 feet wide, can you still use those tools?
that's the challenge. You got to work with fire department and make sure that vehicles can still get back through there in a timely fashion. But it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not for every location. It'd have to be looked at a little bit closer and talk with more parties involved than just me saying, hey, put this in. So.
Do we have anybody from the neighborhood?
Mr. Smith, is there? You have to step up, I'm sorry. Give your name and address.
Doug Smith, 233 anyway. I live at the north end of the straightaway, and the house next door to me's been hit and took out one of the trees in our yard. That's before I bought the house, so it's, prior to 8 years ago. But this latest house was, I think, at Staghorn Court anyway. And he went through the right shoulder, overcorrected, went through the corner house yard where the sheriff's officer lives, and then hit the next house.
Do you hear anything from your neighbors? I mean, what do y'all, any thoughts, suggestions? I mean, I know I have,
We're
but
numb to the noise, okay? Because people are speeding because I'm 2 doors down from the stop sign. And so they're just starting to accelerate or they're slamming on their brakes sometimes. But I'm just glad I'm not in the corner house. But everybody's concerned.
I don't want us to be those people sitting here that we wait until that gentleman would have been outside smoking a cigarette and that car killed him. Would we have changed our thresholds then?
He normally sits in
And
the
it shouldn't,
driveway reading.
right, he does. He sits out there and smokes. Real nice guy, but I don't know.
For what it's worth, he slept through the accident.
Yeah.
So, else he'd probably be having nightmares.
Well, I mean, we're discussing, we're bringing back what was requested we requested from staff was to do the study and come back to us. So, we can have, we can put on, if you want to take it further, we can put it on the agenda to take it further, and see what else options we want to put in place, if we want to put any other options in place. That's, I guess that's where we're at right now.
I'm not trying to harp on y'all. Thank y'all for doing all this. I want us to do something
Can I
other
ask-
than just signs.
I have one question because I just don't know the answer. Does the city assume any liability if we do a traffic control measure, but the traffic study didn't recommend? So I'm saying, just
No,
for
no,
example,
this
as speed bump.
This is really discretionary, and you're just doing your best to save the people. So there isn't, the only time you have liability is if there's a big danger like a huge hole that you know about and you don't put up a sign for it. Or like street ends and someone ends up in a ditch because they didn't know the street ended. So,
So we can always go above and beyond.
right, don't forget, we did that whole traffic calming study and.
Well, yeah, we did.
Stuff, so.
But it's all based on what's the industry standard is you take action after 85 percentile. And so that's what that's based
I
on.
don't think that you have to. You can look at it and use it.
I mean,
It's not a law or an ordinance.
No, it's
saying
not. It's
it
just
has
a-
to be the 85%. Y'all can, I mean, we've got new people on council who haven't seen it yet, and it might give you ideas.
So it sounds like what we could do is put the 2 static signs up and maybe intermittently do the sign that lets you know how fast you're going, just to remind people.
The static signs
Something.
have gone up,
Okay, so we've done that.
Yeah,
The
that's,
the two
that's,
regular
Consistent.
posting that it's 30 miles an hour, correct?
I believe so. I didn't drive it today, I'm
well,
sorry.
Okay.
the deal is we were going to put the static signs up and do the study to
Yes.
see if we had any impact from the static signs. So if we
Okay.
didn't do that, we just spent money, we just spent time doing a study. It was supposed to see if the static signs had any impact.
I'll get that information for you.
Well, perhaps we need to look at what's causing people to drive down the street as a
Cut
through street, because, you know, we have a lot of blockage on Oyster Creek Drive between that way and 332. Any given time during the day, lunch hour, afternoon, that traffic backs up horrendously. And perhaps somehow moving this traffic out faster. Again, we'll be relying on TxDOT to make that happen because, you know, they control the traffic light at 332 and OCD. But, you know, if you can move the light, you know, move cars faster, perhaps people won't be taking.
And every time we've done that, though, I think the response that TxDOT has gotten is that their number one concern is that traffic exiting off of 332 and 288 to get onto Oyster Creek Drive or to 332 to go under the overpass is they can't allow that to stack up onto the highway. And so that's, my understanding is that that is their primary, during those peak hours you're talking about, that's the primary concern is that traffic stacks up at that intersection.
But this traffic starts up 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. There is no traffic on highway at that time. I think they need to, they need to do a study of that intersection and see at that particular, not anyway, but the intersection of 332 and OCD, and perhaps maybe they can help us, alleviate some of these problems. I'm just throwing it out there,
Yeah.
because,
It's
But
just,
the bottom line is that we can do everything, we can put traffic lines, speed bumps, spike strips up, whatever we wanted to do, and you're still gonna have those people
Was that a
Better.
motion? Because I'll second that.
that is uninterested in following any of those laws, and you can't control those people. So the guy going through the house, I mean, there's always gonna be those people regardless of how involved we get in it. And you can't stop anybody, everybody.
And
You
again, the
can-
reason
you
why
can
you have, the-
mitigate it and offset it, but you can't control it.
and again, the reason why you have the 85 percentile, whatever percentile you want to use, is to see if you have a consistent issue. And the consistent issue is not above 35 miles an hour. You have the outliers that are the 65s and the whatevers. And that goes back to what you're saying is that, we're not seeing, again, going back to what you're saying is that you could make changes in there, and you may not even shift the needle. You may still have the 85 or
Somebody
whatever.
may still run through somebody's
Yeah.
house at some point.
That's right. So,
It's just, you can't control all of it.
yeah.
yeah, I lived in the neighborhood for 7 years, and the traffic light, I don't think ever gave me a problem. Once you live there, the couple of times not to go there, and you go the long way around. And every once in a while, you'll forget, and you'll get stuck. But I don't know if it just I'd go, down to that way, or invariably I would be one of those that would cut through and go down Tulip. But don't tell Mr. Baker that.
Yeah, down his
A
street.
couple of times now go from October until March.
Say that
You
again?
can't get out- You can't get out of that or anyway onto OCD.
Yeah, that's why I would never go that would. But does it happen more often?
Yes, sir, I've seen OCD back up all the way to that way.
Yeah, it's been about 5 years since I've lived there.
We created even a bigger problem on OCD traffic moving is when we put in that hash sign, do not block the intersection.
Yeah.
So OCD people stop, and then people from anyway keep on cutting in and getting into the way. So when the traffic turns green, the traffic cannot move like it's supposed to because it's got partially blocked.
But I'm also gonna say, I lived in that neighborhood for almost 7 years. And if they don't have that right there, you can't get out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get out.
I'm just saying, we just don't want to create another problem by putting another thing into place. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I don't want us to tread in stagnant water any longer. Will you give me a month? Can we go 2 meetings from here? Put it on the agenda. Let me talk to the neighborhood. If I can come up with a good group that wants something done, I'll bring it back to you guys and we'll vote on it. If y'all don't vote with it, that's fine, but at least I can say I tried. Is that fair? Can I do that?
That's fun. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you all.
Mr. Eric, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabrina.
All right, we're going to move on to item 6, and we're going to discuss and consider a first reading of ordinance allowing for administrative inspections of massage establishments to check for compliance with state laws. Ms. Russell?
Okay, this is exactly what I brought to you last time, except if I put back in the tinting. I mean, the untinting, so that there's a clear view of the lobby desk.
Reception area.
Thank you, the reception area as requested, and I don't think there were any other, I've accidentally closed my packet, but I don't think there were any other requests.
The only question I received was a comment received recently was the hours. I said a lot of people work shift work, and some of the people want to go earlier than when they get off work at 5 a.m.
I
So-
thought I started it at 6, like I
Six
Yes,
said.
they're just looking for
Yeah.
additional hour in the morning.
6 a.m., I thought that was, if you wanted to, that's
At
up to y'all.
5.
If you want to start it at 5 instead
Yeah.
of 6, it's up to, I mean,
Yes,
it
they just
doesn't
get off
mean
work
someone's,
using their
doesn't
time,
mean
so.
an establishment is going to open that early, but we need to have them closed for a certain amount
Right.
of time. So, if y'all want that changed, let me
I'm just
know.
I'm just passing on the comment that I received, so.
Ms. Hearns, you operate one of these establishments. Could you just step up here real quick, give your name, address, and then, I mean, you've talked to a lot of people in your field, so you just give us an idea on the timing. Is 5, 6 a.m. a big deal for your folks?
I'm not gonna do it.
You're not gonna be able to find.
I'm not gonna get up that early. But, you know, I've had some pretty prominent people that work very, very early, and I would get up and go.
Right.
Early, you know, 5 o'clock. I didn't do it very often, but I would do it.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna do it.
Okay.
Well, I didn't hear from the beginning, something about the receptionist, something?
No, what we had done was whenever we had when Sherry brought it to us last meeting for initial, just bring back what she'd learned from talking with you guys
Yes.
and stuff, and y'all had some concern about, we had in there that you couldn't do black out the windows and stuff
Yes.
to the reception area and stuff. So what we had suggested is that we would open it back up to where that you have to be able to easily view into from the outside. So it still means you could put blinds up or you could put tinting, but it still has to allow you to be able to see into the building, see in from there,
Just the reception area.
into the reception area.
It's,
Okay.
it says maintain a clear and unobstructed view of the reception area from outside the establishment.
So if you read that, I would say that you could not have blinds.
Well,
Because that's an
Well,
obstruction.
if the blinds are, yeah, you can close the blinds, but you could at least have slats.
yeah. The way our building is designed, the front of our building is a room, or gonna be a room.
Right.
So it comes up the side.
Right. But you can see, like, I love your
Absolutely.
place,
Yeah.
and I go
Thank
there,
you.
and you can see into the reception from
Absolutely.
the
Once you step up to
sidewalk.
the door, you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
I agree.
All right, so that's the only change that we've made
Okay.
from last time we talked.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
appreciate all y'all's time for doing all this. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
Yeah, but if y'all want to change it to 5, I'll do that.
to what?
5 instead of 6 a.m. Just let me know.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mike Walls, 59 Southernwood Court. So the only thing that comes to mind is in my office building, right down the hall is a massage therapy place that my wife and I go to, and they have no windows or any way to see into their space. Would they potentially, under this ordinance, be required to put a window in so that you could see into that reception area?
Explain that they don't have any windows or doors. Are they inside
So
of a
we're in the
different
First
building?
National Bank of Lake Jackson building,
Oh.
and so they're in a hallway, right, just like
Right.
me, and they just have a regular door, so there's just a wall.
I think the ordinance says you just cannot obstruct a window if it's there. If it's not, it's not
Yeah,
there.
that's what
No,
that's,
It doesn't say that.
yeah, I mean, but,
No.
because that would be a concern, right, is the way the ordinance could be written, that may require them to put in
Some sort
A
of
glass
window.
some sort of glass
glass
door or
door
a
or
window or
something,
something like
Which is
that.
tough to do in that kind of place, because you think about like the professional building in the hospital where the doctor's offices are inside a bigger building.
Yeah, especially when you're the guy that runs the place. you
Or
know.
if you're leasing and the building
Right.
owner doesn't want that, so,
Right.
I don't think that's the,
Don't y'all have the right to
that
go
that
in
wasn't the
anyway?
idea.
Do what?
Don't y'all have the right to step into the reception area anyway?
Yes, the city does. They can walk in and inspect at any time.
Right.
It was just the businesses that did have glass, we just didn't believe, if we're all doing this to try and make things right,
Right.
we don't want them to go in and black your windows out, and then it just creates concealment and cover that gives you an eerie feeling, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I think, can you put the word, unless everybody else wants to force that on them, can we put if you have glass front?
no, I'm gonna say, unless, I'm gonna add an exception to, someone who's in a multi-use building, an
Okay.
interior.
Interior building,
An interior
interior,
unit in a multi-use.
No, that was not intended.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah, I
bringing
figured
it
it
up.
wasn't intended, so
Okay,
thanks
thanks.
for reporting.
That's
Angie.
a good clarification.
And I would excuse me, I would add, what I see at 50-80, A5 says, may not have an entrance or exit providing a direct passageway to any other type of business. And
Right.
I'm sensing the same potential problem, so that might need a little.
I mean, they're just, their entrance is to a hallway. They're not going, that's actually state law, because there were things going on about back ways, and so that's.
So in other
state
words, you
law.
can't
if you
have a
walk through
bar,
the-
you can't have a restaurant next door to a massage parlor, salon.
Sure.
That has a door in between the two.
Or a
to where-
hotel.
Or a hotel.
What about a bank?
Yeah, but they're not going into the bank, they're going into a hallway.
Okay.
I mean,
And I'm
they're
not, I'm not
stepping into the
physically.
teller
They're not even on
area.
the same
Okay.
floor, they're on the fourth
So-
floor.
Okay. I
second
haven't
floor.
been there, so I just want to, when I saw that, I was
haven't
like, oh, I gotta go into the bank to get to the
Hallway.
masseuse. But
You're going into,
by a
Foyer.
hallway before that?
Back part of that bank, that's almost, there's
Okay.
elevators right there. that goes straight.
Direct
Okay.
passageway to any business
Go
or
into the
residence.
bank.
I
Just
mean,
something to look, you know.
I can have the same interior unit exception.
Or you
I
could-
just don't want two interior units to
Connect to
be
each other.
running back and forth when the inspectors
Yeah, I
show
understand.
up. Yes.
Okay.
So the bank would be responsible for all the exits and fire stuff?
right.
Right.
Okay. Not the establishment.
So Sherry, you want to clean it up and bring it back, or you want us to?
I'd rather have you vote, and I'll clean
On
it up
first
and bring it
meeting-
back for a
first
second.
reading.
Because this is taking a long time.
Yeah, what you're doing is not an easy thing to do.
All right, any other discussion on this one? Again, this is first reading, and Sherry will make the changes that we've noted and for the second reading. Any comments from Refuge for Women, since y'all made it out here tonight?
We support 100%.
Okay, thank you.
They started this.
All right. Yeah, go ahead and read it, okay, please.
This is an ordinance of the City of Lake Jackson, Texas, amending Chapter 50, Health and Safety, to add Division 5, Massage Establishments, to the Code of Ordinances to regulate massage establishments and allow for administrative inspections, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith shall be repealed to the extent of the conflict only, providing for a penalty and providing a savings clause.
All right, need a motion?
Move for approval?
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion from council? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries on first reading, and we'll bring it back, final reading, next meeting. Thank you, guys, everybody. Thank you. All right, we move on to item 7. This is going to be discussing ordinance draft that establishes and regulates mobile food vendor courts. This is another one of Sherry.
Okay, so page 110 of your packet starts the new information. I brought it all back because things in the new information refer back to the old stuff that y'all have already approved. So I've changed the initials from MFU to MFD, and so to stop the giggling. And then this is, let's see, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's a couple more pages. Everything is so red.
Yeah, it starts at 110 where it starts bleeding everywhere. Page 110 on the actual document.
5046.
5061,
61, huh? You-
MFV courts in general.
Okay.
Yes. So, I've listed the chapters that also apply so that everyone will know this isn't 100% it. You still have to comply with whatever is in these 3 chapters. And then the site plans, I went over this with David Walton, what he would want from a site plan. It's not that different than any other site plan, except they're gonna have eating areas or ARCAs, as I wrote. And And he asked me to put the grease interceptor in there, so that is so important. And then paving, they can't be in the grass. In the mud, this language matches what's in our subdivision code.
Okay.
So it's nothing different from what any other place has to have. And then the parking requirements, the planning commission already set those out, so there are references to 110 zoning. And we've decided on the utilities that there will not be generators. So this is, remember, these are the courts, and so the court is providing the electric service and water service, and everyone hooks up to that. Every court's gonna have restrooms, real buildings, not porta potties. And then, of course, they're gonna have to have dumpsters or something to put all the garbage in so that it stays closed and is not a nuisance to the neighbors. See, it's 60 feet from residential property and other MFVs. And then the grease interceptor isn't gonna be 500 gallon now. He's asked me to just say it'll be engineered to the correct size.
Okay.
So,
Sherry,
Yes.
the 60 feet from the residential property, is that in reference from another part of the code?
60 feet is the normal amount of everything that has to stay away from residential areas in the zoning code. We have later on 100 feet, because y'all asked that the actual food trucks be 100 feet away from the residential zones, but I put in 60 feet because that's in the zoning code, that's if you're up against residential, whatever use you have, it's 60 feet.
Yeah,
If
so
you
if they
want me-
wanted to build,
Their restrooms and their
restrooms
gardens will
in
be
there
60
or whatever,
feet.
there could be, they just had to be 60 feet.
If you want me to increase it, that's fine. I was just trying not to make a conflict from,
Start
Yeah, I
increasing it
just
too
don't-
much, and it's gonna be no place, you can't put it in the city because there won't be a place big enough.
I just don't know if that we have some places that violate that.
Oh,
but this is the courts.
Okay.
no, he's,
This is.
No, I
the
was just thinking
courts.
some apartment complexes that back up resident, I don't know if the dumpsters are 60 feet away from.
no. No, there's, some of them are on the fence line.
Not on the agenda.
Yep, not on the agenda.
So another question on that 50.64 on utilities. Maybe we need a little more clarification, perhaps say permanent electrical service and water service must be provided, because they could constitute a generator as electric service provider.
Somewhere we say we can't use generator.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in there, but I can put permanent electrical service and water service.
And just add no generators here also as well, just to clarify that, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, generators, I think we said in there, somewhere it says generators only, no generators unless it's an emergency situation, so,
But not everybody reads everything.
during a hurricane or something like that.
All right.
Snowstorm.
No amplified sound equipment so that it cannot be heard inside of a house or another business. I mean, if it's out in the street, it's out in the street, but that's my guideline. Is it an unreasonable noise? Can you hear it inside your house? Then, yeah, it probably is. But if you can hear it in your backyard, that's just how Sandy travels. Okay, so the city inspects the MFVs, the food trucks twice a year. They'll also go twice a year and inspect the courts themselves.
Okay.
And then, the non-compliance is, we'll send you a notification first, and if you don't correct it, then we'll start with the citations.
Yeah, because again, the court will be, the food court or the mobile court like this is actually, the court is a business.
Yes,
And it subcontracts with the food trucks.
right. So I've got Vinay's changes, if anyone else has changes. If you think of something, let me know.
So how does this impact the owner of Weenies?
You know, they're not a court.
They're separate lots.
They're
Yeah.
a separate lot, but they've got two lots. They've got one truck on one lot and one truck on the other one. And so, you know, they're a separate deal. They have to be careful because they're a non-conforming use
Right.
too.
Right. Yeah, okay,
They can't keep adding on or else they're gonna lose that status.
right. Okay,
which
so
is,
again, this was a draft, so you're just wanting input from us?
yes,
No other action?
thanks for your work on that. See, that's what I wanted.
That's what you want. Here, have a butterscotch. All right, thank you. Any other questions, folks, for council? All right, we'll move on to item 8, award bid to Sentinel for Recreation Center Pool Pack in the amount not to exceed $615,000. And Ms. Modesto, are you going to be Robin?
Yes, I am. Tonight, they did open bids. We had one bid from our current vendor that does our conditioning service for the rec center. The bid did come in around $850. They met with the engineer and the vendor to value engineer it. So we've knocked it down to the base bid to $599, and they're recommending alternate 3. So alternate 1 and 2 will come out. You can see on page 115 the things that were reduced out of that. The staff and the engineer were okay with that. The only thing that creates a little bit of heartburn that we'll just have to come back later next year is the duct sock replacement. Just hoping that we'll hold on for another year, but this gets us close within the project limit. It was 600,000, and we're at 615.
So this originally budget item included the ductwork?
Yes, but I think alternate 1 is 123, so we'll have to push that till next year.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I'll take a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to award bid to Sentinel for the Recreation Center Pool Pack in the amount not to exceed $615,000.
All right, have a motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Broadus. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, item 9 is approve interlocal agreement project with Valesco Drainage District to repair the city's portion of the outfall pipe at Ross Switch Gate in the amount not to exceed $60,000. Sal.
This particular item is similar to what we have had in the past in our partnership with, in local agreements with Velasco Drainage District. They undergo a certain amount of repairs to their outfalls, the gated outfall portions of them that they maintain during the year. And in this particular case, it's the outfall that we call the Ross Switch Ditch. And that is a ditch that goes into Oyster Creek from Old Angleton Road, right about the Willow Drive intersection, or just a little bit beyond that, one north. That in particular, yeah, that's where it is. That outfall is an open ditch right now with a underground, it's a shallow open ditch with an underground piping system going to the gate at Oyster Creek. About 363 feet of that is ours. It's a 54-inch corrugated metal pipe, and the rest is the VDD portion, which goes from the gate well to the actual creek, and it's around 150 foot or so. The particular work is something. The scope of the work is one that the VDD chose to do. It was not our call, and what they saw was at the bottom of the pipe was developing a lot of corrosion, a lot of pinholes at the bottom portion of the pipe. The top portion of the pipe seems to be in good sound condition. So they were proposing to put in this lining portion that is typically shot with a pressure gun, and supposedly has good qualities as far as lasting situations. They believe it may extend the life of those pipes about what they are hoping to be about 20 more years. It is primarily at the bottom portion of the pipe, let's say about halfway up the pipe itself. and it will create a smooth flow, so which will improve the flows along with the protection of the actual metal strata. And in this particular case, there's our portion would be, like I said, 363 feet, and it's at $60,000, which is what we're asking that you approve. It's another part of the interlocal agreement, and it will go to them as an interlocal agreement request.
And of course, this is not budgeted, so we'll bring back at the next meeting, if council agrees with staff on the recommendation, we'll amend the capital projects fund, and it can take this small project.
All right, any questions? All right, so I need a motion on this item for the interlocal.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve item 9 as presented.
Okay?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further question or discussion after motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, item 10, discuss and inform council on dangerous structure determination board process. Modesto.
Yes, I know from just the recent building that we had to take down, there was just some questions on the process. I've asked, David just to, quickly go over, that process and then maybe answer any specific questions, again, and see if there are any recommendations or changes, if that council would like us, to consider or to, put into the process. But I thought first it'd probably just be good just to, rather than one specific case, just talk about, what goes through, or maybe just even a little bit of a history of the DSTB. David?
And Sherry, real quick, the procedure and the policies that they follow are by state law, correct? Or-
Yes, our ordinance is modeled on the state law, yes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So when we have a home that comes to our attention that might be in a state of disrepair, we will first receive a complaint about that home. Either it's an internal complaint because we have witnessed it ourselves, we're on the property because of code enforcement, a neighbor's called us, or I'm sorry, we're on the property because of code enforcement, we've seen something that caused concern, from the right of way, in which case, most of the time, we'll just take note of that and we'll keep our eye on it. An external complaint might come from a citizen complaining about the property next door or something that they happen to see. Sometimes it's they're coming from renters or other concerned parties that happen to live in or around that structure. Once we do get a complaint, we will investigate it. Again, we'll go out and see if that complaint's even valid. If it's coming from a tenant or a homeowner wants us to come and look at something, that gives us access to the property because they have control of the property. If it's something that we need to try and get access to further investigate, we'll first make contact with the owner, make contact with the resident there, and try to get in voluntarily. If it warrants and we can't get in voluntarily, then we will go and create an affidavit and perhaps get a administrative inspection warrant for that purpose. Those investigations are handled by myself. It's not something that is delegated to staff. In some cases, the fire marshal may accompany as there might be conditions which would warrant his opinion on as well. So if we do an inspection, we'll first make contact again with the owner of the building and try to set up a time that they will voluntarily let us come on. We usually set that up for at least 21 days, give them an opportunity to make arrangements with tenants, make some repairs if it's something that they're aware of. In which case, if it is something that they're able to fix, that might be enough for us to say, you know what, we no longer have a concern. If it's involuntary, again, we'll go through the warrant process and have a warrant signed by the magistrate. Once we do an inspection, we will have a consultant engineer come along with us, because I'm not an engineer, I don't pretend to be one. And that engineer will look at the structure for structural stability, for items that may be in a state of disrepair that would further cause that structure to become unsafe either in the future or at that time. And we base that upon 18 specific items that are outlined in our municipal code. Specifically, Section 14307, minimum standards. There are 18 items that that I and the consultant engineer will look at to determine whether or not the building is in a state of disrepair or to what manner it's in a state of disrepair. Once we have conducted that inspection, the engineer will send that report back to my office, and at which time we'll determine whether or not it's something that we need to pursue further, or in some cases, you know, did the engineer not find anything that would cause that building to be deemed dangerous, and we'll just work with the owner on making some repairs to that building. When we get the copy of that inspection, we do send a copy to the owner. We'll send it by certified mail. We'll send it by regular mail as well. It's understood that if they receive one, because maybe they don't want to go pick up the certified copy, but the regular one does not come back to us, then that is deemed delivered.
So Dave, I have a question.
Yes,
These
sir.
are not cosmetic things we're talking about. These are actually safety concerns, right? I just want to make sure we clear.
Yes.
So
No,
these
we're
are
not
cosmetic
talking,
stuff.
we're not
This is-
talking chipped paint or missing fascia boards. We're
These
talking
are related
about,
to safety of the.
you know, yes, is the roof in a state of deflection? Are there walls that aren't plumb? Are there things that would cause the building itself to be unsafe? We're not talking about a homeowner that just needs to make some maintenance on their home.
I just want to clarify that earlier the comment, during the visitor's comment was, you know, seen a lot of homes in that condition. I just want to clarify that this is not cosmetic or unlivable. These are safety-related concerns only.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you.
Which actually,
Sorry, sir.
no, you're good. I have a question that I'm having trouble phrasing, but I guess my question would be then, are these the type of issues that you would sort of need special training and engineering in to even be able to see? I mean, it's not like if I just walk in there, would I even be able to tell by looking with my eyes that perhaps these structural things even exist there? Or would I really need to know a lot more about what I'm doing, fire marshal style or professional engineer or code enforcement type?
Well, once again, there are things that could be wrong with the house that are covered by sheetrock, they're covered by siding, and an untrained eye would not recognize those. But we do, again, use a structural engineer who engages in that profession, does these inspections, and is well known around the community to verify those concerns. Or in some cases, come back and say, you know what, it might be ugly, but there's nothing wrong with it. And we've had that.
Okay, go ahead and
Thank
what's your process?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
So once it is determined that the building is something that we do need to pursue as a dangerous structure, again, we'll send a copy of a meeting letter to the owner with the date and time. At any time in this process, the owner could decide to take the building down themselves, or they could pull building permits to make repairs. If they pull building permits to make repairs, obviously, there's no need to go forward with a meeting. Now they're working under a construction permit, and we work with them to see that the repairs are made and done according to the minimum standards of the building code. The city secretary sets a meeting date, and typically 21 days out from the date that we send the letters, we like to give, again, opportunity for an owner to receive the notice, for an owner to make arrangements to be here or to send a representative. The owner is asked in the letter to come with a work plan to make the necessary repairs, and they're given every opportunity to represent themselves, and they can bring their own professionals with them to talk to the board, because again, this isn't a building official action, talk to the board about what that work plan might look like. The board at that point would work with the owner and work with their professional to make the necessary repairs and give them a time frame by which to have that work completed, or in some cases, require the building to be demolished.
And David, can you pause for a second?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Russell, can you explain who sits on the board?
Oh, sure. So, it consists of experts in the field, and it's required in the ordinance that we have someone from construction, architecture, we have a medical professional on the board. Let me get the exact wording. City engineer, a doctor or a nurse, and then so it's 5 people. The next 3 have to come from architecture, real estate, construction, framing, contracting, or engineering. It's not just 5 random volunteers. We meet those standards every time.
Okay, thank you.
So when the board does meet, again, they'll listen to the evidence that I provide, and then they'll talk with the owner, and the owner has an opportunity to represent themselves and represent their building. That meeting is posted in the paper as far as the meeting date and time. It is an open meeting to the public, and we have had people come from the general public and listen to those before. The notice of decision is, again, once the board has made a decision to either demolish the building or work with the owner and specify parameters under which that work can be done, which is typically performance-type measures, pull building permits within a certain period of time, have the project at certain stages during certain periods of time to make sure that the building actually is progressing towards being repaired. We send that notice of the decision via certified mail and regular mail, once again, to the owner, and we'll also post it in the yard. The owner has an appeal period, in which case they'll have an opportunity to come back and either appeal back to the board or to the district court to have the decision reheard, maybe amended, depending on information that comes up. In some cases, maybe they've found somebody to help them work with the home. In some cases, maybe they found somebody to purchase the home. If there is an appeal, once again, the city secretary sets up that meeting and we go through that process again.
David, does the board have discretion in terms of, say, it's normally you give a person 30 days. Does the board have the discretion to say, okay, we'll give you 90 days or 120
Well,
days? Yes.
I'd like to say yes. The ordinance specifically does state that the work needs to be completed within 90 days.
What it does is that if they want longer than 30 days, then they have to bring David a specific work plan. They don't just give them a blank 90 days. They give them, you're gonna get the architecture, you're gonna get the permits, you're gonna do all of these. And if they're doing due diligence and doing that, you can come back to the board and get more time.
Yeah, because a lot of times what they've done is if they've given those extensions like that, and they'll come back and they'll show that, well, I haven't completely met it, but I'm showing enough progress. Can I get a little bit more time? So they've adjusted every time.
They do that. It's just the ones that do nothing that
Progress.
And
on the
you know,
timeline.
it isn't cut and dried because they talk to the person and they give suggestions and they ask if they need help and do you have someone who can help you? Unless they brought their help with them. They're not just sitting there as stone judges. They really get into the whole thing.
So you said, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. You said the board is regulated by law. There's 2 boards within our city that council has no say-so over. One of them is DSDB.
Well, right, I mean, you all appoint the people on that board, and if you're not satisfied, then you just take them off the board. The appeals go to the district court, the zoning board of appeals, and that's the board if you want to go into the setback or do something with your property that's not, it's mainly setbacks. Or I want a carport, or I want my carport or garage to be taller than it's supposed to be. Those things, that gets appealed to the courts. And then this one, the Dangerous Structure Board, also does not get appealed to council, and that's by state law, that gets appealed to the district court also.
Is their process that they run off of, the DSDB board, can council insert things that we would like in that process? For instance, my suggestion would be, if you have somebody that's coming to the board that's having, we're getting towards the end of them not being able to fix it. We see where we're going. I feel like we need to insert a step for that board that they have to follow that is a list of, we should ask if they've had these resources. Resources as far as, can we, have they had the chance to talk to a realtor? Have they had
Applied for HUD money.
applied for the HUD loan? If they applied for the HUD loan like that person did and there's no HUD money, I feel like we should stop the process for a second until, you know what I mean? If there wasn't any HUD money, which there wasn't in this case the first time she applied, but the process just keeps going, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, can we insert a list of things that the board needs to follow? Can we do that?
One of the things that we've talked, and we'll talk about here in a bit, is with staff and stuff, is a few things that we're looking at already, kind of similar to what you're talking about, is to formalize a list of resources. Because I sit as liaison on this board, and so again, as you know, as liaisons, we don't interject, we just observe. And they do ask the questions, and David does a good job of talking with people and trying to get them to look at other resources and it's just that we could formalize that list, and so at least we can say, we can hand that list to an individual, say, here's some resources that have given us their names of saying that they would be available to help.
Okay.
And make that available to them.
So I would say you don't insert that into the board, you insert that into David's
David's.
list, because by the time it gets here, it's a dangerous structure. And you can't wait for HUD, and you can't wait for them to open the process and then to give the money. It's a dangerous structure. Electricity's been shut off, it's full of vermin, it's affecting the neighbors. At that point, you want to give them those resources before it
Early
gets to
on.
that
Right.
point. So I would say that gets inserted and given to David, and when he gets a property like that, he says, and here are your resources, so they can get started.
I want to say one thing about creating a list of resources, and that is, that I think we have to be very careful about us not creating a specific
Right.
list, and that needs to be open to the public. If a citizen says, hey, I'm a real estate agent, I would like to be put on this list, or I'm a developer, or whatever, that needs to be open to the public.
I don't want specific people on that list. We don't know if these are scammers and gonna take advantage of these people. These are vulnerable people. Not the landlords who just let it go, but the people who own the property are vulnerable people, and we don't know who's gonna try to scam them and take advantage of them or not. I would rather have like HUD and maybe call a real estate board to get a recommendation and things like that, rather than a specific company.
So the only thing I'd like to add to that is we don't have the discretion of how we treat these properties. If it's a single owner, or if it's a corporation, or if it's a landlord that has multiple properties, we have to treat them all the same. So in a case where we're talking about a single person who lives in the house, or a single person who owns the house versus somebody who has 35 rental properties around town, we would have to
You
treat
do
all
treat
of
them the
them.
same. And
We
you
would
can
have to
give
treat
that
all
to
of
the
them
Now,
the same.
landlord.
On the county program, though, it only helps or assist a homeowner. It does not assist a landlord. and stuff.
The homestead thing, if it's the homestead.
They are not eligible.
That is correct.
And in this case, in this one instance, Ms. Hartman had made application, in 21, 6 months prior to that, but there was not enough funds, nor, because I sit on the HUD committee for the county, and there are not enough funds for none of the applications, so I can't say, we don't vote on those. There's so many that they have to put them in
Oh, that's right, she
Right.
said, yeah, it's like a lottery.
a lottery, because there are so many that are qualified stuff, and that's how the county picks. I don't know, it could be years before someone, gets selected. It may not be the next go-around.
So we've had 2 properties in the past recent years that have been, one was an occupied property. We did provide that individual get in contact with DSHS, with the Brazoria County Housing Authority, and ultimately ended up helping that individual secure an apartment before having to go through the process of taking the home down. And in this case, providing the owner with, the most recent case, because again, general overview. The most recent case, providing the owner with the applications, encouraging them to apply, making the contacts ourselves to that department, and trying to make those connections well in advance.
And we've had one, I can't remember the year, but I was reminded years ago where there was actually, they tore down the home with the county and they built a new one.
Yes, the county has done that a couple times.
And usually
Yeah.
that's the trend that I've been told is what's happened is that most of the homes that they're getting applications now, that the deterioration is so much that, and the cost is so high for reconstruction or repair, that they're better off on building a new home, and that's what they're seeing. But costs have gone up so much that it is tapping into the fund even more.
Yeah, and there's,
I also want to say, we didn't find a builder for her. We didn't find a person for her. That person contacted David. I hear there's this building, blah, 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 and David asked permission to give her contact information.
Well,
We didn't find the person.
what I was going to say is, we're not in a position to say you have to go talk to this person or go talk to that person, or even going out and talking to an individual and saying, hey, why don't you go buy this property, or so on and so forth. I mean, we have to be very careful in what we do and what we say, or even in the process of trying to help that individual with resources for contractors or engineers. I can't say these are the engineers that are approved, these are the engineers we work with. All I can say is these are electricians.
Right. We can't.
And then the electrician that's off that list is going to say, hey, how come I'm not on that list? How come I didn't get that opportunity?
Yeah, we don't vet any of the trades or the contractor. It would be, we just can't do that.
So once the board, I'll finish the process, and then we can answer more questions. Once the board does make a determination, we make notification to the property owner. Go into the abatement phase. It's either abated because the homeowner makes the necessary repairs, or the building owner, because some cases it's a commercial building. The building owner makes the necessary repairs. They've provided plans, scope of work, secured the building permits, and then if the board has made a decision and given them timeframes, then we will monitor those timeframes. If they fail to meet those timeframes, we'll ask the board to meet again. If they continue with the timeframes, usually there's no additional meetings of the board. The board does not meet to say, hey, it's all been resolved, good job. I'll just report back that the building has been finalized and it's abated in that way. Sometimes it's abated by demolition. The owner always has the option to demolish the building on their own accord. Sometimes that happens during the phase. I mean, we've had a couple people who we've said, hey, by the way, we have concerns about that building, and they said, yeah, so do I. Roll the dozer in. But if the city has to do the demolition itself, we'll solicit a minimum 3 bids, and we'll go with the most competitive. We'll call for the locates, we'll coordinate the disconnection of utilities, we'll start the demolition within the mandated 30 days from the order date, and then the demolition is complete by removal of the structures off that property. The contractor will leave that property smoothly finished and in a
Down to the dirt.
yeah, down to the dirt, but they'll leave they won't leave holes where the slab was and whatnot.
Well, there's been a few times when we've, like for a home that was fire damage.
Yep.
Where people their intent is to basically go back and rebuild the house. And so they'll ask, can they keep the slab? And I think what we always say is they have to have it certified that it wasn't damaged during the fire because of the heat and stuff.
And in one case, that's actually, come back and
Create a
didn't
problem,
do,
right.
didn't do the builder justice, because what was put back on that slab was not the same as what was taken
Yeah.
off the slab.
So if
you have a
and-
slab with a one-story house and you put a two-story on, that slab wasn't designed originally for a
And
two-story
again,
house.
in this, and these instances, most of, we're talking about the structure, we're probably not talking about the driveway, or anything, we're talking about the slab of the building.
And then, if the city does go through the process of having to take a house down because the owner, can't do it on their own, then the city will invoice for cost recovery. And if that goes unpaid, then the city will just place a lien on the property. At no time have we gone, lien collecting or sheriff's sales or anything of that nature.
So what process do we have that if a really elderly lady, in this case, that make sure she really understands this whole process? Because, do we have anything extra that we go through or we provide for them? This question, so.
Well, the owners attend the meetings. The owners have opportunities to ask lots of questions. The owners are typically asked lots of questions. And I haven't left one of these meetings believing that there was a lack of understanding.
Okay, that's what I was trying to-
Maybe in cases, disagreement with what the board, the decisions that were made or timelines that were given, but I haven't left with there is a lack of understanding of what was going to happen.
That's what I thought. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
David goes above board and
Well,
talks to
I
these
know
people
that.
all the time and makes sure they know what's going on. He's really good at this.
Yeah, that's the reason for the record. I just
Yes.
want to clarify that portion of it. that
Yeah.
The
The
other thing-
process is not cut and dry.
No,
So-
he's in constant contact with them.
The other thing, listening to some of the comments and some calls that I've talked to people on is that they asked is there some other steps that we could do? And, some of those is to make the community a little bit more aware of what's going on properties and stuff. And so one of the things that we've discussed, and we can discuss it here, is that whenever we activate, and again, the board normally doesn't meet that often. And so when we do activate the DSDB, to look at a property, is that Modesto in his manager's update will bring that to council and say that, we're activating the DSDB on this property. And so then we could be able to at least get information on what the property is and so forth. And the other thing is that if you guys are in agreement with it, is like, if you remember, whenever we finish this council meeting tomorrow morning, you'll get an email from Anna that says this is what, a summary of what was decided at council. And we're gonna do the same thing for all the boards, including this one here. So anytime DSDB will meet, you'll get an email the next day that says this is, the DSDB met and this is what they agreed on, type stuff.
To take that one step further.
We need to I'll bounce off it.
To take that one step further, say Modesto lets us know, hey, this property is gonna be up, then what?
You have knowledge of it.
You have knowledge.
We have knowledge of it.
You
but
can't stop it.
You can't stop it.
You can't stop it, but what can we do to make the community aware? I mean, like, we've had several people reach out to us.
The only other thing that we've done is just right after this is that encourage, anybody who's interested, because this, will happen again. Since 2017, we've had 14 structures that have gone before DSDB. 7 have been repaired, 7 have come down. And so, those numbers will, usually stay in the trend. I mean, before that, there have been many, many other facilities. Anyone who's interested, who thinks, that wants to know about this, any board you can sign up for notices and stuff and get notified anytime an agenda goes out. You can see that. That's for all of our boards. So if anyone has any particular interest about a particular board, that's a way, to sign up. You'll get a text notification or an email notification that meeting is going on.
And we've already communicated that.
And, right, and that's what I was gonna say. So, for example, this particular situation, it went in the newspaper on June 16th through 19th as a notice of public hearing. At that point, if people who were interested in it see this notice and say, hey, I'm coming to this board meeting, they still have time at this point to step in and intervene, is that
They
correct?
can say that they want to buy it or whatever.
Or help them, or fundraise, or whatever they want to do. So that notice is already being
Yeah.
placed in the
We
fax
just,
newspaper.
we just can't make the owner want to speak, to
anybody.
to any of those individuals. That's still their choice.
We've got to do, I'm sorry, Megan, we've got to do a better job, though, of getting that out there. I hear let's do a better of getting the community involved. I'm a council member and didn't know. I woke up that morning to watch it on Facebook. That is unacceptable. That cannot happen. Because I didn't even have the chance. I would have loved to call Megan or anybody to say, hey, this is what's going on. Let's try and rally the community or whatever. I didn't even get that chance. I don't even know who's on the board.
Well, and how many of those houses that have
Need
been
to come up with a
demolished?
speaker.
You have to come up there.
Thank you, David.
How many of those houses that have been demolished have been elderly people who can't afford to, contact these resources in the community to have these items fixed? Bringing electrical up to code can be thousands and thousands of dollars. And if that's just the start of it, when the city goes in there, they're going to find other things that are not up to code. So typically, when these homeowners are reaching out to the city or whoever to advise them or help them, they're also causing more problems for themselves, because then the city's going in and finding that the plumbing's not up to code, the gas lines aren't up to code, all of these other issues, to where now, instead of just an electrical permit to get those items updated, now they've got a whole slew of things that they have to fix. And, I can see how for someone who doesn't have the resources, the knowledge, the money to be able to fix these things, how that can be really scary and very difficult too. And especially when you're trying to talk to a board, made up of engineers and doctors and real estate professionals, for someone who's never bought or sold a home, but a home that was just handed down to them. I'm sure it's very intimidating to go up against these people and just being told what you have to do or what you need to do or the amount of money that you have to come up with. I can't imagine being on the other side of that, not knowing at this point what is left, but for someone to demo your property. And watching her sit outside her house, that was her family home, in the heat, her hands and feet are bleeding. That was horrible. I mean, if it didn't make you feel some type of way, then I don't know what kind of person you are or what you're doing representing our city. But I truly feel that this is why people live in Lake Jackson, is because it's a small town. We have that small town community. People care for each other. They take care of each other. And we didn't do that for her. So that's why I'm here today, because I feel like more needs to be done. Now, if you're a investor and you own 30 plus properties and you can't keep up with your property, then okay, demo it, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But when you're an elderly woman who is disabled, the only family she has is a brother who's older than her, was getting his foot amputated in the hospital while this was going on. She had no help. She probably didn't know to reach out on Facebook and ask her community for help, or BC updates, or any of these other resources that most people of our age have. I think that she just didn't have the knowledge and the help that she deserved.
David, you want to address their comments about going down the rabbit hole of what's going in for electrical, and she's accusing that we go out there and seek and find more and more things?
Well,
is that your intent?
no, because once again, we look at the building as a whole, and we have to have some reason to go in the first place. When we go in and we notice that, in this case, we have, and we're not just talking about, I can see the wires through the roof. We're talking, I can see the insides of multiple strands of wires through the roof, and it's still connected to CenterPoint Energy. It's definitely a danger to any occupant in that home at that time. At that point, that's where we stopped. We said to the homeowner here, we have to get this fixed. We have to shut the power off, and we have to get this fixed. And she spoke to multiple electricians, I know that I've seen her postings on Facebook about the issues with the home, but I've seen multiple electricians and talked to multiple electricians. We issued her a building permit to make the repairs. She had my number because she intended on doing the repairs herself. And I told her, please call me when you're ready for me to come out and look at anything. It might even just be one board that you've nailed in place. Call me. I want to come and see it because I'm very invested in getting this home back to where you can live in it. But that didn't happen. And it just continued to not happen. And we live in an environment that does not like us. High humidity, the soil types that we have on, it tries to take our houses down faster than we can sometimes try and keep them up. And so as you watch a home deteriorate over time, even as you're doing your best efforts to try and work with them to make those necessary repairs, to and again, I can't reach out and say, hey, electrician, why don't you go talk to her? Just like I can't say, hey, property owner with 30 properties, why don't you go over there and make a bid? It's not something we can do, nor can we just take a list of properties that we deem to be suspect and post them up somewhere, because what if that's your house? What if that's anybody's home? They don't want, their business out there like that. So each situation is going to be different, but we do our best to try and go down every avenue possible, especially if it's going to be affecting an individual such as this. Like I said, we've only had 2 buildings that weren't something people weren't interested. Sorry, bad choice of words. The one building that somebody lived in, we worked with them, tried to find them resources, again, put them in touch with programs that could even replace the house if they had been selected. And then we secured them an apartment to live in prior to taking any other steps. And in this case, we knew that she had a place to live. I know she's on SSI. She's just over that threshold of getting additional state assistance before Medicaid's taken out. And without divulging more of her information, we made the phone calls. We sat there with her. We tried to find resources for her, but that wasn't going to fix the house. We've even talked, not on this case specifically, but we've even spoken to the Lions Club and the Hispanic Rotary to try and garner some community support. We had encouraged the homeowner in this last case on multiple occasions, and just to put the bug in, you might consider selling it in the condition it's in, especially since you have someplace else to live. But again, I can't force that, nor can I tell her she has to, nor can I go out and talk to specific people and say, you need to buy it.
And there was someone trying to buy it.
There was. And so, like I
The two
said,
of them just weren't.
she came back and appealed the decision. She came back with somebody interested in purchasing the house. And he came back with a work plan. And the board went through the individual's work plan and questioned various aspects of it and gave the owner additional time to bring portions of her property into compliance, and the buyer time to get the permits necessary. That failed to happen within
We don't know
those
why it
specified
failed.
time
We shouldn't
frames.
know why it failed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
So, I don't know, I'm all about let's keep government out of our business, but I always think it's a good idea when people come with questions about the process, that we ask those questions, was she of sound mind? And if she wasn't, who do we contact Adult Protective Services, those sorts of things that are in this process. So, I never defend or support anything blindly. So I went back through the Dangerous Structure Determination Board minutes, because this is why we have minutes on all of this. And I read through all of the attempts. There's one thing on here that says Ms. Doucette, who I believe is the nurse who's on the board, asked Ms. Hartman who will help her remove the belongings. So people were asking these questions about, do you have help? Do you have somebody that can, you know, we don't expect you to load up a U-Haul and with all your couches by yourself. And Ms. Hartman said she has friends that will help. So, I mean, you can offer help, and we should offer help. We should make that a standard practice. But when you go back through these actual minutes, which are available to the public, and somebody can have my copy here if you'd like them, I just feel confident that Mr. Walton, our city staff, really did go every extra mile to try to help her. It's a terrible process. City of Lake Jackson got nothing out of this besides, you know, a black eye and having to go. I mean, I couldn't imagine having to go to somebody and say, "Hey, we're going to have to take your home down that's been in your house for 50 years." You know, none of this is of benefit to the city in any way, other than it keeps our neighborhoods safe from a structural standpoint.
Yeah, I think there is one misunderstanding. Everybody, there was some rumor that we want the property. We don't. We just put a lien on the property at some later time, you know, for the demolition, and it stays with the property. The property is still owned by the owner.
And I will say, I think there was a correction that, I think it was, the initial thought was that this demolition cost $20,000. It did not. It was $11,000, so they did take the lowest possible bid, and so that would benefit Ms. Hartman in the end, to where it's less money that she has to come up with. So, I appreciate, I'm a question asker, and I appreciate the questions being asked. I think we need to ask these questions. But I think you guys did your best with it, and I just hate that this is even something that our city has to even discuss.
Yeah, these actions are not taken lightly. They're not decisions that are made overnight, and we do exhaust efforts to try and stave off these actions.
And I'm gonna address one other thing that was out there, and that was, it was asked why nobody was out there helping her. And I asked that question because I thought it was a valid question. How can city staff stand there and not help her load her stuff in here? And I think that's a valid, just basic humanitarian question that was appropriate to ask. And it turns out that when this has happened in the past, the homeowner then comes back and accuses city staff of theft.
Right.
And so you can't win. And
Or they'll get
There are no
hurt.
winners in these situations, you know, so.
Whether we damage something or whatever.
We damaged something, we've stolen something, and I mean, that's not fair to put our city staff in that predicament.
Yeah, we had an incident years ago where the owner we did try to assist in a situation like this, and then for at least 2 years, accused us of stealing, you know, jewelry, all kinds of things in the house, and we didn't have body cameras. I think we couldn't disprove it or anything, but we decided after that we would, you know, we need to stay out of that.
Let me give,
function.
Mike, you signed up to talk on this. You want to say?
Yes, it was. Thank you. So, Mike Walls, 59 Southernwood Court. Yeah, I've been taking notes here. Yeah, a question that y'all talked about was why wasn't council aware, right? I mean, as the body that interfaces with citizens, right, as a elected position, you know, I would think that would be something that would be pretty critical in these types of situations. You know, not for everything, right? We're not talking about a car getting towed away or something like that, but we are talking about someone's house, which is huge, right?
Well,
So
again,
I agree with
every,
that.
everybody on council and the public, but everybody on council receives agendas. And agendas were published before, sent out, and everybody on council received a copy of the agenda to know that this board was meeting on a specific day and that they were speaking of specific properties, and discussion was going to include demolition of said property. So council was made aware by agenda.
Using that excuse is not fair.
Here we go.
Why
That's
didn't
not
she come to
fair.
us at any time? Did she ever come to council and want to talk about it? 'Cause she was aware of what was going on at every meeting too. And we meet every 2 weeks, same time, same place, and at any point, the citizen could have brought it to our attention if they thought our
Something was unfair.
assistance would be helpful to them.
What did we, oh, wait. What did you mean by here we go? I'm just asking a question.
No,
Am I
just-
not allowed to ask a
No,
question?
I did not say that. I did not say that you cannot ask a question.
You said, here we go. I was just
Because you
curious of what that
Because
meant.
you'd already started you made your comment of saying that you didn't even know that that this was happening, and you didn't even know who was on the board.
I
Okay,
don't.
You went through the onboarding that we did with you, and in your onboarding documents, it lists all the boards that we have and all the people that are on those boards.
I'm just asking I'm not saying that the city didn't follow all the rules like we should have. We did. We checked all the boxes that we should have. I'm just asking out of a human being perspective, why not just send an email or a phone call or something to let council know that
Well, I
we're
think-
going to tear somebody's house down?
I think Modesto identified and addressed that as something that he needs to do in the manager's letter, that is an
Well,
improvement.
I've
that
raised
needs
it
to be
high,
done.
I raised it higher. We're going to put it on the manager's update when we have called the board. So in the future, we will say, the board has been scheduled, to be called to meet on this date. And that will be on a council agenda, so you are aware, rather than us giving you a copy of the agenda and seeing, we give you a lot of information. So it can easily be overlooked. So we're gonna put it on the manager's update going forward when we do this, because again, invariably, it will happen once or twice a year and we'll tell you that the board has been called to meet on a specific property, so you'll hear that.
Plus, they'll give you 21 days to do whatever you need to do before the board meets.
And I really hate to interrupt you, Mike, but I actually don't have a good sense for how long this process is from the initial complaint to the bulldozer. Is that like, add up if you're adding up to 21 days, not 30 days, is it like a year? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 years, 3 years? Is it every case is different for facts? And I want Mike to come back up when you're done, of course.
Yeah, they're all going to be treated different. I mean,
Okay.
it depends on what the issue is. I mean, if I have.
Is it like an average, at least a year? Can you give, is there any kind of time frames that?
A year
I don't
would
have
be
a long.
A year would be
mean,
long.
Well, this one's gone on for a couple years because, again, we first identified an issue. But let's take another case over in the Flag Lake neighborhood. Once the building came to our attention that the back of the building had collapsed in on itself, but you couldn't see that from the front. The front looked beautiful, landscaped, manicured, just looked like maybe nobody lived there. But the whole back end of the house had fallen in. Once that came to our attention, we did act on that, and we acted specifically by making notifications. And from inception to the end, it was just a matter of a few months. But in a lot of cases, again, we're going to exhaust all efforts to try and work with the owner to make the repairs. And in most cases, it's probably going to take 5, 6, 8 months.
But given like the mandatory statutory disclosure notice requirements, it could be as quick as 3 months.
Oh,
if
sure.
you did it bang, 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 bang
Yeah.
on purpose.
I mean, if it's, well.
But they don't all
if
go that
it's-
fast.
If it's something that would necessitate that, I mean, there is an area of the code that would say if there's an imminent danger that we could move before the board even hears, but
Like
that's
a
exceptional.
house catches on fire
I mean,
tonight, and
we
then
have
you
a
can
hurricane and that house is in the process of toppling over.
Right, okay. Thank you. That's just a piece of data that I didn't have.
Okay, Mike.
So, yeah, sorry, Mike.
It's Mike's show.
Okay. Mike Walls. They didn't have Sutherland Court. Thank you, Rick. No. Let me back up and preface this by saying I sincerely believe that everybody who sits on city council, everyone I've ever interfaced with the city, are wonderful people. The people that sit on the commissions and boards that I've dealt with or sit on, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that everybody wanted to do what was best, and in her best interest. My primary concern, after saying that, is I'm in the business of taking care of old people, right? So I run several businesses in the city of Lake Jackson. I deal with this population, people that have dementia, Alzheimer's, who have physical disabilities and so forth. We provide them care in home. We have an assisted living facility that David's been out to a few times to help us with our building codes and whatnot. I also am in the real estate business. I flip houses, I buy houses, I have a construction company that remodels houses. So in like this whole perfect storm, like this is 100% in my wheelhouse, which is why I think it affects me emotionally so much. And like many people, I saw this, open up Facebook, alert comes up and you're like, wow, what is going on, right now? So, I think, in talking with Ms. Borth the other day about this, I think in a lot of ways, or in a lot of these situations, it maybe is investors, it may be somebody who's bought and sold houses before, they are a bit more understanding of how the process may work. I think where this one is keenly unique is that it's a very unique circumstance. This woman who inherited the home from her mother, who did just get out of the hospital recently. I don't know the timeline. I did do an open records request, so I am waiting to receive that information. Ms. Villarreal said she would get that to me shortly, so I don't have all the information. I think in this type of situation, if we're talking about exhausting all resources, there's a lot of wonderful volunteers that sit on different boards and commissions with this in this community who do it for the love of the residents of Lake Jackson. That's why I do it. That's why I've asked to do it. I would have loved to known about this, because in my network, in my sphere, just like Ms. Arsenault, we know people who probably could have approached. I'm not saying we could have accomplished anything, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make them drink. But it might have been a situation where one of us could approach the owner of the property and said, look, we can evaluate the situation and maybe help her get to an end that could have been a bit more positive for everybody.
And that's really why we're encouraging everybody who has that, helpful, heart to sign up, for the meeting notices so that But I'm hesitant on, putting a list of resources together, even with you or Ms. Arsenault on it, because then I may have to put somebody on the list that I'm not vetting anybody, and there could be someone that I shouldn't put on the list.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody's asking. I'm not asking for that because I understand why you wouldn't want to do that for liability issues. Just like I don't want, Mr. Walton out there helping move pots out because of all those situations. I run into that all the time in my line of work as well. But, sometimes getting into the process, right? I'm heavily regulated in my line of work. We go, it's process. And at times we lose sight of the human being is on the other end, of on the receiving end of this, right? I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm saying this is a unique situation. Of everything that I've heard about, over the past 5 years, things getting demolished, this seemed to be a fairly unique situation. Whether it is or isn't germane, but that's what it seemed like, and that's why you got public outrage or people concerned about this is because of the way it's happened. So how can the public be made aware of this? DSDB puts, as required by law, puts it in the newspaper of public record, which is the facts. Sometimes Mr. Rosnofsky gets on to me because I like to go to Facebook right off the bat and blast government because I'm not a big fan of government wholesale at all, as many of you are probably aware of. But in this situation, there are other ways, a means of communication where we may be able to put something like this out. We know this is a unique situation. We know this is an elderly woman. I don't think anybody who's dealt with her has the background to make a determination of her mental capacity. I think if anybody, I would be the one who could make that determination better than anybody.
That's not true because you have a medical professional on that board.
But
And, I know this medical professional, actually, and she's very astute.
Geriatric specialist?
Well, she's not a specialist.
I know,
she's
but
very
you get my
informed.
point, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is not a neurologist. This is not someone who specializes in geriatrics and brain diseases and things like that, right? And I'm not saying it has to be, right? But what I'm saying is we know there's some situations, they're showing some signs, right? There's hoarding, there's behavior that's non-normal for most people, right?
So what are your suggestions, like if we were to come across this type of unique situation, what are your suggestions for us to be able to communicate that without, again, pushing government more getting us more involved.
Well, I don't ever think pushing more government on people is the government communicating more effectively. I never think that's, so this could be used.
Like, how do you think we?
People my
communicate
age
that
and
better?
younger don't take the newspaper, right? And as a general rule, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. But we do use the media to communicate. And I'm not saying we have to put every single, I, sitting on a couple of commissions now, know about the Notify Me system. I didn't know this particular board existed or to sign up for it, right? I am now. But I would say yes, in these types of situations where we are talking about something as grave a situation as tearing down someone's house, maybe we can communicate that in other means that might reach more people, right?
With the permission of the owner, because like, for example, when you go back and read these minutes, there were offers of Facebook and GoFundMe in the minute meetings, and they were declined.
So that's
by
a
the homeowner.
so that's brings me to another question I have is I went online to look for these meeting minutes and I can't find them. So were we able to? Did you pull them off online?
Well,
When
usually
the
these
minutes
minutes
get
are not,
Oh,
not
Sally can
posted till
answer
they're
this.
approved, so they're not approved for the next meeting.
No, but so
But they can only go online once approved, and this board doesn't meet that often.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
right.
just approved
That's
this.
what
right, but they've
tonight.
had a couple of meetings now over this,
The
correct?
very last meeting has not, those minutes haven't been approved, the
Because they have to
July
meet
meeting.
again to be able to
Because they
approve.
haven't met, but the June meeting should be on there because
Right,
they,
so it's not. According to my,
That was tonight. Those meetings from the June meeting were just approved here tonight.
okay,
And I do have a copy
which
of
which
this.
also begs another question, right? Is these decisions are these things are put in motion, the structure is now gone before anybody could even looked.
But
at
the reality,
minutes
the reality
of what
is,
the
the minutes that
DSDB.
we approved tonight were supposed to have been on our last meeting agenda, and they weren't put on by staff. So they were available to be viewed and approved by council at our last council meeting, which would
Yeah.
have been before the incident.
But they weren't.
Yeah, that
I'm
was
just saying, they were supposed to.
No, I understand, and like I said, I'm not casting aspersions at any individual in here, right? These are breakdowns of process, right? These are just procedural things. Point being, if I wanted to go look this information up, I couldn't. I had no way of getting it, and even, when I sent my open records request, I think even at that time, I was still, some of these things just didn't exist yet, that were able to get to me. So, that's a bit of a concern, right? We're having meetings
That are open to the public and notified.
that in the newspaper that nobody really knows about this board. It's this unique situation, I think, that has people like Ms. Arsenault and me riled up. I've spoken about chickens, rabbits, I've spoken about driveways and things like that. All of those are child's play compared to tearing down someone's house. Child's play compared to that. It's one of the most egregious acts that can happen to somebody, right? Is having their house taken from them. Extending more grace, looking at things outside the box to help communicate this to a wider audience. I'm not saying it would have ended it in a different outcome, but it could have. It could have,
So if those things were offered and the homeowner declines them, then what?
If the homeowner doesn't have the mental capacity to make those decisions, maybe
Well,
getting
you don't
someone
have
in.
to- You don't have to be of a detrimental mindset to say, no, I don't want people in my business.
You don't necessarily have to, but there's indications that the woman was. There's indications that the woman was. I mean, I don't want to get into anecdotes, but I've had run-ins with police department in Lake Jackson where we've had elderly clients of ours who we're not caring for 24/7, but we get a phone call, they're found wandering the neighborhood, and the police officer doesn't know how to interact with a person who's suffering from Lewy body dementia, or something like that. It's not a failing of the police officer. It's not a failing of the person that has it. It's not a failing of their family. It's not a failing of us. It's just a situation that existed, and it was an unfortunate one. Luckily, they knew we were taking care of them. We were able to get involved, de-escalate a situation, get the person back to safety. In this situation, what I'm asking for is for council, the DSDB, to look in these very unique circumstances where someone potentially, we know they're elderly, we know they're hoarding, we know that things are in disrepair, we're seeing non-normal type of behavior, that potentially we could do a few more things, a few more steps, reach out to a broader community at large beyond Lions Club and Hispanic Rotary, to maybe, other organizations and people within the community, even if it's just our local boards and committees, because those people are very well networked with other organizations or organizations that they're involved in who can help that may be outside of the expertise of the limited few people who are involved in that scenario.
Well, then give a list to staff so we know what these organizations are. Because, I mean, we've tried, but you're saying there are more organizations out there that we could have contacted.
Well, I mean, Megan Arsenault, Mike Walls
No,
are
your
two
people.
organizations.
Your people. We don't want to give people. We don't
Okay, well,
know to trust
every
people.
single board and commission, I just said that Volunteers for the City of Lake Jackson is an organization that could have been made aware of this and allow them. So now it's not, the official city saying you got to go. Allow them to talk to their networks. If I would have known about this, I would have reached out to people, and I would have reached out to her directly. And then,
You're airing someone's dirty laundry out into the public, and we can't do that without permission.
we have an elderly individual who is in serious threat of having her home demolished.
She didn't live there. It was a building.
I'm not
she
here to
owned.
argue with you. It's her home. It's her house. These terms are used interchangeably. It's her house.
It's her property. It is her property, and it was sad to see it go down. It was very sad.
So
but I
this
just-
is not what being stonewalled and told reasons that we can't do
I was asking
things.
for a list
are
of
not-
committees and things that we could
we-
call.
if- I
Okay,
think
Adult
We were
Protective Services,
asking
Department of
for-
Family Protective Services.
Yeah, please make a list.
Were they reached out to?
Please make a list.
That's what I meant when I asked about a list of things that we could interject with, just a checklist.
Churches.
At the beginning of this, before it gets to the DSDB, please make a list and provide it.
We can come up with a list that at least staff is familiar with of resources and stuff, and then we can ask, the council, we can float that to you. So, council's maybe more aware of other resources that, we're not usually, we work in the realm of working with, the county or,
Doesn't it-
government.
What
we can do is, Mike, is-
Government organizations. Every once in a while, we'll know of a church. My understanding is that she had reached out to a couple of churches, and the project was possibly too big for them to assist. David, do you know, did we reach out to Adult Protective Services?
David? Just, yeah.
In this case, I did not reach out to Adult Protective Services. And to be quite honest, to be quite honest, when you're working with people in my capacity, and for me to have said, hey, outside organization, I don't think she knows what's going on, or I don't think she knows how to take care of herself, I thought that was overreach on my part, and maybe I'm wrong in that, and I probably should have, but it's not something I did because if it was me, in that situation, I would be very offended that I'm calling somebody from the state to come in and try and make a determination for me. So I did not do
Yeah,
that.
so I'm going to be very clear on this. Staff did nothing wrong. Staff worked very hard to assist Ms. Hartman. We are open, if there are room to approve, if they see where we can better approve. But staff worked very hard to assist her.
Correct.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
And Mike, what I was going to say is that
And I
if-
think David Walton is a lovely individual, and I've seen him interface with other people, and I think he does a heck of a job. Everybody here I've ever dealt with does an incredible job. I do not want me speaking to you guys as admonishing individuals for the things that they did. I don't want that. I don't want anybody to come away that that's my intent here. My intent is
You
not
just want
that
us
at
to look
all.
at the process and try to do it better.
I want to see just
Agreed.
is there something in these unique, weird situations that are completely life-altering? Is there something we could do?
I don't think anybody up here disagrees with that sentiment of, again, ask the questions and see what we can do better in the process from start to finish.
And what, I think what Modesto started saying was, is that staff will start a list of what resources we know, and we can contact you, you can take a look at a list, or
I would
any
love
other group
to.
of people that want to. But again, it's, to get back to what Sherry's trying to say, is it needs to be organizations, it can't be individuals. It needs to be organizations that their role in the community is to help people. That's the kind of people that we put on the list that we could share. And that would be something that, again, I sit, the only meeting I missed was the last one, and that was, I was enjoying birthday with my 2-year-old granddaughter, okay? But all the other ones I have been, and this is, the reason why I take sitting, being liaison on that board, it is the hardest board to sit on. It's hard for those individuals to sit on that board, because it's emotional. You try to take the emotion out, you got a process that should take the emotion out, but you gotta, we all care for everybody in this community. And so, like Modesto said, and I sit there and I see the interchange, the exchange that goes back and forth between the individuals that are being talked to, even if they're somebody that owns tons of property, they're still compassionate with them, trying to get them to work through the issues and so forth. But again, we can do an initial list, formalize that list that we've shared, we tell people, have you talked to these people? We can formalize that list and we can see if we can add to it with your input or anybody else's.
Well, and I would love to be a part of any idea sessions or anything as far as how we can, potentially stave off these types of things from happening in the future, or at least find other options for them. So,
I have a question. Is there any way, I know the minutes are not posted till they are approved. Is there any way to post draft minutes? So, I
No,
mean,
they have to be,
they have to be approved.
But what we are changing though is that the day after they meet, you will get an email.
Right. I'm
That
talking
will
about, not
say
talking
this is
about
what's been agreed
public.
upon.
They're looking for, since they're public record anyway, the meetings are, I just don't see a point why we can't post.
Because we don't know if they're correct. We can't post something that might be incorrect.
Right, just like with us, on our meetings, we don't post them until we've approved them. That's because we've had a chance to review them and meet and say that.
But these
they're
will be
okay.
posted as draft, not official minutes.
We do not post council
We've never
minutes.
posted a draft.
So, in this one instance, Mr. Walls is correct. There was one set of minutes that we could have posted and provided, we should have provided those to council. That was the first set. Because once they had the second meeting, they approved them. As soon as the board approves them, we can post them. They don't need to wait for council acceptance in that regard. So that was an oversight on, staff on posting the initial set. This next set is still not been approved by the board because they haven't met. And so sometimes on these as-called boards or boards that meet once a year, that set of minutes, it sits
They
there.
sit there
and
for a year,
They
for
sit there
whatever.
unless we call the board in just to come in
Just
and
to do
approve the
minutes.
minutes.
well, let me clarify my statement about it. I couldn't find any DSTV minutes online. Any. So not just this
Okay.
one, but any.
Okay.
So that's,
Then we'll check,
Yeah.
correct that.
so, anyway, I think that's all I have.
Mike, Megan,
Thank you.
thank y'all
Thank you.
for
Appreciate
taking
all
your
of you.
time.
Yep, thank you very much.
It is appreciated.
Okay.
I'm sorry I got emotional, Sherry.
I don't know what to do with you, Mike.
She's a lawyer.
No.
She's
Does anybody need candy?
Okay.
Got candy.
All right, so again, what will come out of this at the very, well, we've already talked about the list that staff will start generating. We already talked about that we'll add to the manager's update anytime the DSDB is activated. So we'll know up front that it's being activated on a property. And then also we are starting to do the next day summary of all boards and commissions to council and to those boards also. that's what I have down that we're moving forward with.
Okay.
We have item 11, discuss resolution 903, appointing representative and alternative to Houston Galveston Council Board of Directors for 2023. I currently am the representative, and the last time we kind of talked about this was during liaison assignments, and Matt said that he would do it if needed. I think it's the last time. Now he's wondering if he ever said that, but.
Mike,
Yeah, no, this one's up in Houston at like lunchtime-ish or
But
whatever.
it starts at 10, and so there's usually 10 to 11, but lately with all the battles we're doing with Harris County and Houston, they're running 2 to 3 hours long.
And lunch is not provided.
And lunch is not provided, no. So,
Wow.
but anyway, I haven't missed one yet, so. And there's still the option of, they don't like it, but they're still Zooming in, but they're trying to get everybody back in because they really don't like the Zooming conference. So anyway, so that would be, unless somebody else really wants to jump in there and do that, we're gonna need it's gotta be done by resolution,
so what you're asking for is a backup plan to you.
a backup to me. So
Is it once a month?
it's once a month.
But you've never missed one.
Unless
never
he's-
missed one.
I'll volunteer.
Unless he gets hit by
Yeah,
a
and
bus.
I can, I mean, so you're saying it
It's on
has to be,
It's on Tuesdays, once a month, every Tuesday.
if you have a formal backup and that formal backup can't go, can you send somebody else?
Yeah,
or
you
do
can send any, but
Okay.
the way their charter is written is if you're gonna be on the board, and we wanna be on that board, is you have to have
Yeah.
a primary and a backup. And, yeah, and again, if nobody can go, we can't, it's not a problem, because we never have a problem with
I
quorum.
will be your backup. I'll be the backup if need be, but yeah.
You had a volunteer here.
Okay, so Vinay is volunteering for it, or did you really wanna do it?
Renee?
No,
you're
no, I'm
retired,
sorry if
you're
you-
up. No, no,
No,
no,
if
no,
you
no.
are-
No,
I'm
no,
trying to-
no, you're it.
I'm just trying to
Two to
help you
one.
guys,
I need
so.
a motion and a second.
All of you
to-
guys have official jobs, so.
I need a motion
I
and a
understand
second.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Vinay Sinhania.
I
as
second.
the-
Can you slow down a bit?
You've got
Think about
to
it?
do, represent me as primary, if that's who you want as primary, and.
No, no,
Okay,
Vinay
so
I'm
I'd
not
like
gonna
to
be
make a
primary.
motion for Mayor Rosnowski to be the primary on the Galveston Area Council Board of Directors for 2023, and appoint an alternate, Mr. Councilman Vinay Sinhania, as the alternate.
Okay,
Now I second.
okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody else really want to jump in there? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Again, item 12 was deferred, per request of staff. And we'll go into item 13, city manager's updates.
Yeah, sidewalk repairs, I think the copy that we provided in the, where is it? I'm lost here online. Can you bring that list up? No, there it is. Okay, so I thought it got cut off, so it's there. That's really the same list, I think. I may have added a couple on there in front of you, so we'll keep that updated and corrected. Hopefully by the next meeting, we will have finished all of these. The only question I have to Sabrina, are we having any more leaks? Have they stopped? Please say yes.
We never stopped leaks, Modesto, but we
Well,
have,
from the
we have
drought, from the
significantly
drought.
dropped off from what we were with the drought, yeah. We are back down into a more normal numbers now.
Yeah, so I would, hopefully by the next meeting, we've
Yes,
cleaned
we
out this
anticipate
list.
being finished.
So,
Sabrina, just, and I know you probably don't have an exact number, maybe you do, but just a rough number of how many hundreds of leaks that the staff dealt with during this drought? Any ideas?
No, I don't have that, no,
Yeah. I mean,
Deb had said something,
hundreds.
yeah, it was like,
yeah, the
300
last,
some
we
in
gave
the
the last
last-
total in the last letter, and I really hadn't asked for an update on the leaks
I
since
can
they
get that
were,
update for
since
you.
they were telling me
But it
they
was
had dropped
hundreds.
off.
yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I can get that to Modesto and
I
get
hated
that
to
passed out.
text in and call Modesto and say, hey, Modesto, I think it's leaking all over by Denver.
Another one? Okay.
So that's that update. And then the other update, just wanted to let you know that the Public Works staff is taking a field trip to Houston to look at this beautiful pickup truck or
Fancy dancing.
It's like a knuckle boom.
We're looking at, the city of Houston uses, I think, 40 of these. And what it appears to be, and we hope, a much more efficient way of picking up bulk trash and also green debris. So we're going to look at and see it in action and see if there's a way for us to improve. Because really, it's the bulk trash and the green waste that really just kicks us in the tail every week.
Yeah.
So it'll be instead of those jaws that we're using right now.
We use
Front
3
loader.
tractors with the loaders and the staff, and then picking up and putting them on the flatbeds. This is kind of like a knuckle bone that you see when we bring in a contractor. But this vehicle operates by itself, and the driver can actually be in the cab and drive the vehicle along the route. And what that also allows, it allows for a bigger truck in the field of a, I guess, it's not a flatbed, but it's a
It'd
container
be
truck.
loaded. You could do a
that
flatbed, you could do a.
winds up
a
allowing it to be a little
low
bit
boy or low
larger and a
pressure.
little more
Yeah,
flexible,
something along those
because once the the claw, when the claw's assigned to the truck, once it's full, it's got to go. So you lose everything. This is kind of a mismatch of what we do, but with a better piece of equipment.
Right.
And so we're really curious about this. And
So this will replace the claw.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if we ended up going to this system, then we would not have those front end, that we'd still have a couple of the front end loaders, but they would not be the main piece of equipment that
Could
we'd be
keep from
using.
people's
Pick up.
yard getting torn up too, so that'd be good.
You're gonna have it come down, and you're gonna be like, the claw from, the
But again,
movie, so.
nothing speaks better than actually talking to the end user versus the
Yep.
salesperson or seeing on video. So we're gonna,
Good.
we'll take a site visit in Shadow Houston for a day.
It's a stinky job, somebody gotta do it, right?
We're all excited. I mean, Public Works gets excited about talking about garbage equipment.
Well, the video is good. I mean, videos really show you how well it works. It's a very productive piece of
Yeah,
equipment.
if it does what we think it'll do, we can be a lot more efficient, which is what we're hoping, so.
And with this lifted high enough to where you can use it, right now, we basically cut down those beds on the back of those trucks for the grapple to go in there. Can we
Yes, it
use a
should,
standard
yes, it would
size?
have greater height.
Okay. So I have more capacity.
Mhm.
All right. All right, so we have construction updates.
The only thing I have while he's walking up here, our next downtown meeting is on this Thursday. Reminder, it's at 2 p.m. Everyone is invited. And then before that meeting, I will send you, we have an updated schedule of the entire project, a master schedule. I'll send it to y'all before the Thursday meeting so that you're aware of it as well. That's all
So how was it received?
Initially, it was not received well by, I'll say, 2 businesses. After talking with both of them last Thursday, it is okay now. They very quickly, it was more they just wanted to feel heard and wanted to understand why the change was made, which was done based on staff and contractor agreement. So it wasn't something that was forced on us. It was agreed to because of all the factors. And it will make sense in the long run. And I'll do a in-depth explanation when I send the schedule of why it changed, some good bullet points in case you get questions on it. But the biggest thing was traffic flow. We didn't want you to not be able to access North Parking Place. So we were thinking of traffic, we were thinking of drainage, we were thinking of the schedule in general, because if they would have went to that way, for example, instead of starting in front of like All-Star on Circle Way, we probably would have had a stall where the contractor had nothing to do while they were waiting for the holidays to be done. So there were just a lot of factors that played into it, but I believe everyone is content with it now, and they understand why we're going the route that we're going, and everyone else was happy with it. Some feel that it's better that they're going to be done sooner, like on the portion of Circle Way that we just started this week, today. And so the 2 that were concerned, I think we alleviated their major concerns, which is the Diva at Dusk event that happens at the beginning of November, and access to their building, which we will do regardless.
Yeah,
So.
and it looks like it may have moved this section up 2 weeks or
Yes.
a little bit
Yeah.
more, so.
It just started sooner, and I understand the frustration of when things change. We did obviously give them a heads up before the work started, but, so we had time to have those conversations, thankfully. But I understand their frustration, and that's my whole job as their liaison, is let's see what we can do. And I told them, you know, once it starts getting closer to their big event that happens, the Divas event, then we'll troubleshoot if construction's behind, because we all know October could be a wet month, unfortunately. So, sorry, Sal. But yeah, so we'll just troubleshoot as we get there. But so I think they're okay now, but I'll stay in constant contact with them until we get closer to.
And then, when we agreed with making the change with the contractor, did we have any more discussions about 3 sacks, 7 sacks instead of 6 sacks or anything like that to speed it up? And
We did, and of course, we can't force forcing them to put in the 7 sack cement, which is the high early, to open that up. They only did that one time primarily so that they could, move faster, catch up in what they were running.
But they are going back.
Yeah,
They
they're
won't
going
be
back
using
to the
that.
regular
Yeah.
concrete that's spec'd out.
I think I got tired of trying to finish out already dried concrete before.
And that does become an issue, yes. Today would have helped them because we got a downpour right there when they were finishing up on the concrete. So it would have helped them, but not more than likely it wouldn't have. We lost some concrete today. Well, we didn't really actually lose it. Some of the sidewalk and ramps that were going up the Roma restaurant were poured, and they did, fall into the rainfall period there. If you have any questions on any of the other projects that you are interested in, I'll be more glad to give you an update on those.
Just real quick, Shy Pond outfall. That's
Shy
the one I
Pond.
worry about the most. because
Yeah,
we have a
Shy
storm coming.
Pond, I have not been able to get to as a matter of fact, I'm gonna use that opportunity of meeting with TxDOT to bring out that issue, to see whether they are open to me on that
So we're going to be
particular
working
project.
in their easement, so we have to get their approval.
Oh, yes, we have to get their permit approvals, yes. Yes.
Is that usually a slow process to get that approval?
It could very well be. They usually go back, refer it back to Texas, to district headquarters in Houston, and then it goes into the bureaucracy and the timeline. Yeah. So we're hoping that it could be done here. We were able to do that for the box itself and keep it right here, within the locals. I'm hoping that this is the same treatment that they give us. We don't know.
Okay. Anybody have anything for us, Al? All right. All right, we'll move on. Okay. Just for a reference to council, as you see that there's another visitors comment section there. And what we were doing there is that we didn't know how many people we were going to have speaking today. So what we put in place was if we had a large number of people that wanted to do visitor comments, we would have split it into 2 sections. We would have done a 30-minute section of visitor comments, then go through the agenda so we could take care of agenda that we had to get done for work, and then that would open up the opportunity at the end, if needed, to do visitor comments again, if there were still people that were signed up for visitor comments. So that's why you see that. So items of community interest, we want to start with Matt?
None, thank you.
None. Rhonda?
Just want to say we got the skate park is officially
Yes, we
opened.
did.
It's really neat. There was lots of people out there enjoying it, little kids, older people.
You should have seen Rhonda out there on the
Oh,
board.
man, she was spinning.
Anyways, it was a job well done by Parks and Rec.
For sure.
Vinay?
Just one item, perhaps council should consider looking at the tree ordinance whenever a builder comes in and clear cuts area without permission. Their current, right now, all they have to pay is $500, and they're off the hook. They paid the fine and they're done. It's not enough pain in their pocket to continue to do that, because recently, I know it didn't make a big difference, but over in Northwood subdivision, they were gonna put 2 feet of dirt, so none of the trees would have lived, but they went and cut that whole area without any permits. So to prevent that from happening, I would have council consider raising that fee to maybe $5,000 to $10,000, so maybe it would hurt their pocket, so they would not keep on doing it and just ask for forgiveness and say, here's $500 and we even.
That would probably need to be an agenda item.
Right, I'm just asking for future, if council is agreement to bring it as an agenda item.
Not talking about it because it should be on the agenda, and that's what he's asking.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Chase?
Just the two things that have been removed from the agenda several times, the rabbits and the business facade. I would really like to see those on the next agenda.
Okay.
Can I backtrack one thing? Tomorrow night is the Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful meeting. It is open to the public. It's 6 o'clock, I believe, here in the conference room. So they do a lot of good work in the city, like work.
Yes, they do. It's a hard working, as in labor working.
Yeah,
group.
actual work.
That's right. All right, again, it's already been mentioned, it's about the skate park grand opening. It was great effort, great work done by Parks staff to make that happen. It looked like everybody really enjoyed the day and stuff, so that's great. Staff?
Just accolades to Brian, Chief Sidebottom, and Sabrina. We received notification to, I think today or yesterday, today from TCEQ that they've approved our site closure for our burn site.
Ooh.
So that was good news.
Very good.
Years.
All right, well then we're adjourned.
Okay, this is the coolest truck, and I want to be the one that drives it.
So Matt and I already had to.